Thank you, everyone, for attending this month's meeting of the Georgetown Divide Public Utility District Board of Directors meeting. It is now 2 p.m., 1400 hours. And we now open the meeting. And I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
Director Saunders.
Present.
Director Stovall.
Present.
Director Thornborough.
Here.
Vice President Seaman. Here. President McDonald.
Here.
And presenting staff today, we have General Manager Nicholas Snyder, Operations Manager Adam Brown, Water Resource Manager Alexis Elliott, and Office Manager Jessica Buckle, and Legal Counsel Frank Spandorio.
Anderson.
And Executive Assistant Elizabeth Wilson.
Would I? I will go if you want me to.
At this time, I'd like Donna to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
She had to agree?
I didn't know if she did it last week.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adam, my favorite, on the screen, enjoying my favorite, combination. Yes, the peanut butter.
No, Jessica Ritter is a contract.
At this time, I'd like to ask for any public comment on the adoption of the agenda. There. Okay, now close the public comment period for discussion on adoption of the agenda. Will there be a motion by any of the board members to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimous 5-0, none opposed. Motion adopted to adopt the agenda. Item 3, board reorganization will now begin. Can we have a roll call?
We just roll call one more time.
Absolutely. Director Saunders.
Present.
Director Stovall.
Present.
Director Thornborough.
Here.
Vice President Seaman.
Here.
President McDonald.
Here. Okay. This will be a roll call. Well, we had the roll call for the seated board of directors, and it will be election of the president, vice president, and treasurer. Possible action to adopt the approval of the officers. And I guess now nomination or discussion.
Well, let me, if you can just allow me just a moment to say something. Will you allow me?
Sure.
This will be for calendar year 2024, so this won't take effect until January 4th, the next board meeting. So at any point, you can make a nomination. We do have in place a recommended succession, but that is not anything that is put into place as a firm hard rule. So at any point, anybody can nominate anybody, or you can nominate yourself.
Okay. With that said, let the discussion or the nominations begin.
From my perspective, I have no desire to get into the rotation of director to treasurer to vice president to president. The vice president and president role is nothing that I'm excited about or really want to get involved with. I'd much rather be focusing on the treasury. And if I can be the vice treasurer or something like that and kind of focus on that for the next year, I'm not sure what Director Thornborough is going to be doing a year from now, and it's when elections come up, but I would prefer to go ahead and focus on the treasurer and on that. I also think that kind of given at least your improvement over time, Mitch, that I think there's maybe a benefit of having a 2-year or bring it up to the board to have that cycle on 2 years. I'm open to that. Mitch is going to be here or gone next year. We don't know if you're retiring or reelected, so there's an unknown there. You're going to be here for 3 more years. 2 more, 3
As
more.
long as you are.
Yeah, as long as I am. So,
And longer, and longer.
Yeah, good. We're hoping to use, when the won't go there. Yeah,
And longer.
that's my point is that given the rotation, I understand the intent of that. It's my preference to see Mitch be here for 2 years and then Donna here for 2 years. It's kind of where I'm looking forward and taking me out of that. That's one board member's view. I've talked to Director Fulmer about the treasurer and also with Nick. And I think what I need to do is just get involved and kind of be a mentee while you're the mentor and come here and be involved in that process and move into that role a year from now if appropriate. So that's one director's opinion.
So you're welcome to make a nomination of continued slate, it sounds like is what you're asking for.
I'm engaging in discussion.
So I understand but what I'm hearing is you're making a nomination to continue with the current slate. You don't, it doesn't go anywhere as other people can discuss, but is that what you're trying to do is to make a nomination?
I'm trying to be part of a discussion or not make a nomination.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was clear.
Any other board members?
The only thing I'd say is I would make sure we revisit this every year, because being on the board when we've had times when there's been problems, it's still able to have that revisited every year. So I would not recommend a 2-year cycle. It's possible to keep the same president if they're nominated again, but I wouldn't make it in stone for 2 years.
So none of that could be set in stone. I think it was just a recommendation. We don't have any paperwork or any kind of staff report or resolution to put that into place. And in fact, all of the stuff that's in place now is strictly a recommendation.
Any other director?
Should we be, so are we like deciding the whole group at once, or are we gonna
I would do-
take them one at a time?
You can do them.
I would say
You
one at a
can-
time.
Yeah, because if one person gets one, then there's opens a different slate area.
So
So
a good discussion for each.
I'd like to hear your point of view, Donna, because that may sway me one way or the other. So I'm open to discussion is what I'm saying.
I kind of don't care either way, because, are we having an issue here?
Yeah, potentially.
It doesn't affect me one way or the other, because I'm still going to be striving to get certain things accomplished in the next couple years versus if I'm president or vice president.
I know this.
Okay.
All I am here for is for the good of the board and the good of the community. So if
I never.
it is, the board thinks that it's better to keep it every 2 years, that's fine.
I'm just this one person's view.
so then is there anyone that's interested in being president?
I'd accept another term, given that I'm in my comfort zone recently. Whereas the first 6 months I was just working full-time plus, and then just not really being able to engage and feel comfortable directing the board meeting. At the same time, I'm trying to be interactive with the rest of the staff and the board. It was a little bit overwhelming. But now that the deer in the headlights phase is over, I'm feeling more comfortable. So I'm okay with, well, that's how I feel. And I understand the year rotation thing that you talked about. I know that you were in for 2 years. So I did have a question though, for discussion is if you were able to be the mentee to the mentor and for the treasurer, if the treasurer is Michael, whoever, and that wouldn't be at a board meeting, but is there the opportunity during the course of a term to have the VP chair a meeting?
That's up to you.
Just to get
And there's no hard and fast rule for who is in charge. The
This is not
resolution.
rocket science for chairing a meeting.
No, I think what he's asking is it okay if maybe he stepped to the side and let you run a meeting every now and again, and that would be just
If-
agreed between you and
What if?
her, that's
Yeah.
totally fine. And if you're gone, if you have to be on vacation or if you're traveling, then that's why we have her, she would be able to step into that role. So I want to answer your question. I apologize for being distracted for a minute. I wanted to just address something with Mr. Splendorio. If you're gonna move the slate, I would move them as one piece. If you're going to do individual nominations, say a different president, different vice president, or different treasurer, then I would do those individually. So that would be my recommendation. But if you continue with what you have now, I would just leave it as one nomination to move the slate.
And the last thing I wanted to say was my intention is to serve a complete term if nominated. I don't have plans to move to Tennessee this year. And I don't know about reelection, but I don't think I would. I think after that time, I'd want less responsibility perhaps and not be able to commit to that any farther than this year.
I guess one other thing you need to think about is that you're going to be the driving force for 218. And that's a big thing.
And if he or you all as a board wants to put somebody else kind of as the spokesperson for that, that's also legitimate as well. But I understand what you're saying. He's going to be
Conducting
front and center.
front
conducting.
center town halls,
Yeah, yeah.
doing the 218, whatever.
Well, I hope that we get more than just one board member at a 218 here.
Well, but someone-
It's on you, Rich.
Well, but I think that as president, you like spokesperson for the board. I think that,
And you have to keep your personal issues out and
Sure.
drive just
and
what the board is.
like
is
Donna
putting
said,
forward.
that 218 is a big thing.
It is, absolutely.
And so that, we gotta have, somebody's gonna be here. Not passing the torch. So, and say, here, handle it.
Yeah.
I think we can go back to Director Stovall because you had sort of made a nomination, so now, do
Yeah.
you want to make a nomination now?
Yeah,
Before we do that, let's see
Yeah.
I want to hear,
if the vice president wants to stay as vice president and treasurer wants to stay there before we.
Did you wanna be treasurer?
no, I want to follow you. I want to learn.
What's up with that?
There's some-
He doesn't want the responsibility. He wants to point the finger at you.
Yeah, I never heard of a vice treasurer.
There is no such a thing, but he
First of the
can,
trade, I
he
think.
can absolutely come in when you do checks and see how you do checks a few times, so
And I could be
get a
treasurer.
little more comfortable.
Treasurer in training?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you have something more to say, Don? I saw you kind of get interrupted.
No, that's fine. I was just sort of chuckling at that, but
Okay.
Treasurer and training, I like it. We'll have to come up with a
Yeah.
policy for that.
TNT.
I nominate to continue the slate of officers that GDPUD currently has.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
That's for opposed, just on this one.
Any opposed? Votes 5-0 unanimous for continuation of the current board.
Right. Great.
Can I make a suggestion?
Too late.
public comment.
Public comment?
Yeah, go ahead,
Why
sir.
don't you guys take your signs and switch positions, and John goes over here and Mike goes over here.
So we rotate the signs?
Yeah. And well, the people too, you take your sign and everybody goes on opposite sides.
Oh, not just the signs.
We're like grade school kids. Everybody has their assigned seat and they want to stay where they're comfortable.
Yeah, I like sitting in the corner.
Well, except that you keep
All right.
changing it up once in a while.
Okay,
All right.
game on.
So I think,
Yeah.
Mr. President, we have the next section right here.
Okay, I'm going through the paperwork here.
Sure.
Okay, reaffirm board assignments to committees is,
So this will be to either, again, continue with the current committee members that we have now as board liaisons or appoint different board liaisons to various committees. So again, you guys are on open discussion and determine what you'd like to do.
see, there's a list of committee assignments.
It's only there's only 3 listed.
Yeah.
I'm assuming we voted in, I can't remember, 5 or 6 different organizations that we.
So we're only talking about the committees, the irrigation committee and finance committee now.
Okay,
Board liaisons to those 2 committees only.
okay,
Yeah, well, the last item for board reorganization, sorry. So I think currently we have irrigation committee is Donna and Mr. Thornborough. So if we want to keep that, or if somebody else wants to pop in, part of the requirement to be on that board liaison to that committee is to be an irrigation customer. And I believe only Donna is an irrigation customer, so we do have to have 2 board liaisons to do it. So at this point, we will take somebody else who is not, and that is where Director Thornborough originally was put onto the committee, and I will, you guys can discuss on who you want to have on that committee. And I think,
Point of clarification, I am a irrigation customer.
oh, I apologize. I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, he's the other,
I thought you were pointing at Mike. I'm sorry. You just pointed a general direction, and I thought you were.
Wait a minute,
No,
this sounds awful discriminatory to me. You're kicking me out the irrigation?
I am not doing
Just
it.
because
No,
I'm an
I'm
irrigation
making a
customer?
point of clarification that there's more than one irrigation member on the committee.
Thank you.
On the board.
Any more board comment or discussion about interest in those
I
committees?
didn't know that was
I
required.
think it's a recommendation. I'm not sure it's a requirement.
It's a requirement to be on the committee, it shouldn't be a requirement to be on the board.
It's a requirement for the
To be a board.
committee members, but
Liaison.
not for the liaisons.
Okay, well.
Yeah.
That's the way
Nice try.
that's the way I had it.
but it does have,
Oh, yeah.
Well, it does help, but it's
it
not.
does
required.
have it adds a lot more discussion when someone who is on it knows. You know, same when we had a board up here that was, no one was an irrigation customer. And irrigation was like
That's your opinion.
I get that. You know, where there was nobody on the board that was irrigation.
Sure.
So now we have it and we have that latitude now.
And I think just make,
I'm not poo-pooing you off.
What?
I'm not poo-pooing you off.
and I wasn't either.
No, but see, here's the thing. You gotta look at the position, liaison. You're not a voter. You can't vote on it.
Correct,
You really don't have any say in it.
correct,
You're the board liaison.
correct.
So there no way should that have any kind of ties to being an irrigation customer.
I agree with you
Okay.
completely.
If you wanna have more of a say, be on the committee instead of being on the board. But you be on the committee and still be on the board?
No,
No.
Oh, never mind.
so I think just nominations on who wants to do it or who would you guys would like to have do it.
And remember, it was a
We're digressing.
non-irrigation customer that created the irrigation committee. So people are, care about the entire district.
If I just wanted to comment on what I think I heard Donna say, if the liaison was an irrigation customer, it would add to the depth of discussion, the scope, the broadening of the range of input. But I don't, like you said, it shouldn't have to be a requirement of a.
I'm not leaving willingly.
Oh, that was my question. You want to trade in finance for irrigation?
No, I was on finance before.
Okay.
And you're, in my opinion, you're more in tune with the finance
Yeah,
type
okay.
stuff than I am. I'm more in tune with the irrigation stuff.
Okay, that answers my question.
So currently we have Donna and Mike as irrigation. It sounds like that's going to continue.
You know, I
We
would
have-
say since Mike's not leaving.
Hold on. I'm trying to push this along because we've gone 20 minutes and we're only on item number 3. And we have Mitch and Robert on finance, and Robert has expressed interest to keep on finance. Mitch, I don't know. And then Michael, are you interested in being
I'm
on?
fine at staying where I am.
Okay. So it seems like we are, if, as long as President McDonald still wants to be a finance committee liaison, again, sounds like we're just reaffirming and moving the slate. Just in the interest of time, I'm just trying to push us along.
I would say it's feels like it's my wheelhouse, although if someone else, Director Saunders, someone else wanted to be a liaison, I'm open to that, but it feels good fit for me, but I'm open.
So it seems like Director Saunders has other obligations that he's doing as well for the district, so. You might want to just continue to move the slate on this one and reaffirm who's already board liaisons.
Yeah, so I spread out pretty good.
I
I agree.
nominate to maintain the slate as it is for another year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Motion passes unanimous 5-0 to maintain the current liaison participation.
The next item is to reaffirm the legislative liaison who is currently Director Saunders.
I nominate Director Saunders to keep doing it.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Done. Any opposed? None. Motion passes unanimously.
This is the way we need to do it. Thank you.
Well, I didn't want him to have an opportunity. He's allowed this.
We don't need it anymore. And he's allowed, I love that.
I'm not supposed to make the second.
You're allowed to make a second.
You're allowed to make it.
You are absolutely allowed to make a second.
You're allowed to make the first.
Well, it hasn't been normal and customary, so I'll
You
just,
can't make a motion?
It is,
Okay.
there's nothing in the Brown Act that says you can't.
He can. It's especially if you really want to get it, the Roberts Revised Rules of Order make very clear in small bodies, and by small bodies, 14 members or less, so it's thinking about large parliamentary bodies.
Very small bodies.
Yes, if it's classified as small body, it is not true that the moderator or the chair cannot make a motion, especially in small bodies. The rules have to be used sort of somewhat flexibly.
So you can make motion.
well,
You want to start over and do it again?
I want, before I make this, do the second, is there any board, it doesn't sound like there's gonna be.
You guys already voted, so you guys can't actually open it back up.
So all in favor passes, Director Saunders is now continuing on as the board liaison for legislation committee.
I just make a comment. I thought we weren't doing Robert's rules.
I'm not saying we're doing Robert's Rules, I'm just saying, even under the most proper and formal parliamentary rules,
Up here.
they allow flexibility under
All right.
law.
I think Robert's rules fall under the Brown Act, okay?
No, they don't.
Oh, they don't?
Everybody sets its own parliamentary rules.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so for number E, I do have a slight change. The Regional Water Authority position is not coming open yet. So the only one, and even the El Dorado Water Agency position isn't coming available yet. We haven't been asked to reaffirm this one, but we wanted to include it. So we can either table this and not include it until we are asked to reaffirm these positions, or we can continue,
Including
Yeah.
JPIA?
Yeah, they usually ask for it as well.
No.
So we're looking at two, right? El Dorado and regional, but we're got RDA or.
we don't have, so we typically include these when they come up. We included some of them, but they are not asking us to reaffirm these just yet. So we can bring them back when we're asked to reaffirm them. Yes, ma'am.
I would love to resign from EDWA as the alternate.
Why?
I don't like you anymore.
Yeah, but you never go.
That's a good point.
That's why I'm doing it.
That's a really good point.
That's why I'm resigning as the alternate. So if someone would like to do the alternate,
Oh,
that
Oh,
I would.
Director Stovall, I didn't know there was an alternate, so we can,
yeah.
we don't know who that is. We don't know.
Taylor?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she's one of the solar presenters.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll be glad to take on that role,
so it sounds like,
but let's do it when we're asked to, I guess. Well, no.
Well, no, I think she-
It can go, yeah, because you resigned.
if she wants to resign.
Yeah,
So Director Thornborough is the current representative,
Yes.
and then Director Seaman is the alternate. And we would, I think you're saying we would like to switch over to Director Stovall if the rest of the board agrees. So I think that's where we're at.
Any more discussion on that?
Well, I didn't think you did that good of a job anyway. So.
remember, this is being recorded.
Or now you just get kicked off.
Then may I have a motion to adopt the resignation and redesignate?
That's not an official position as far as the board is concerned. That was Edward's request.
Well, it's still, we have to have. that
We can affirm it.
So
We can affirm it as.
I make a motion to accept Robert Stovall as being, Director Stovall as being the alternate for.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion
We
passes.
oppose. We gotta make sure that's
Oh,
after.
none, thank you. None opposed, motion passes unanimously 5-0. Director Stovall is the alternate to the EDWA.
And then, so when RWA comes up And then we have a couple other ones, MCWRA and
Yes,
and the JPIA. When those come available, we will bring those back to the board. Those are the other board positions.
Do you know what the rotation of Edway is as far as, we're sharing that seat with someone else? I can't
I
remember.
think it's
who.
Grizzly
Might be
Flats, and I
Grizzly
don't think
Flats.
Grizzly Flats has any ability to do it right now. So when they tell us, then we will address it.
Oh,
Because there's Tahoe and us, and then EID probably gets split.
yeah, but that's with Tahoe's seat.
Oh, I
The seat that we have, from what I understand, it is us, and I believe it's Grizzly Flats.
I could do some research for you. I apologize. That's not something I've looked into yet.
Yeah, and I don't know what the rotation is. I thought it was 2 years. I thought I was told 2 years originally, but I've been on it longer. I've been on it for 3 years now.
I would almost not open, I like having you there. That's a good place for us to have representation. So, I will do some research.
Okay.
And ditto on JPIA, is it,
So that's not open
not
right
open.
now.
no, but we both got assigned, or
We
appointed, you and me, assigned at the same time for EDWA and JPIA. I was just wondering.
Oh,
Yeah, so technically we weren't asked to reaffirm the Edgar one. We are just doing it
Okay.
to be forward thinking. And we can't do the RWA one because we have a board member that's on the executive committee who can't be removed. So that's why we can't do RWA until they do openings for re-elections. That makes sense.
no.
No,
So we have a board member currently who sits on the executive committee for RWA, Michael Saunders, Director Saunders.
Mhm.
So we can't reopen and reaffirm somebody else because you can only be one board member that is a representative to RWA. So he would have to renounce his seat on the executive committee to have somebody else take his place.
Oh,
And so what we're hoping to do is when that election comes available again, then we will reaffirm it at the board level. And we can bring it back to the board and see if there is another representative for that commit at the agency.
So
Does that make more sense?
next September, because they vote in October.
Does that make more sense?
yeah, we just gotta find some way to replace him when our RWA decides that they want to invite us.
When they want to invite us. We're in RWA.
Well, I thought you said they didn't solicit, they didn't,
Oh, no, I'm on the executive committee, so if you wanted to switch me out, then I'd have to resign.
no, I understand that part, but I thought you just said RWA.
No, we don't need to reaffirm yet. It's
Right,
not until. they
That's
ask us
what
to.
I was wondering
Okay.
when we first brought these up. Where are the rest of them? When are the dates? Where's the list? That's what we need to be seeing,
Yeah,
not just as arbitrary, two that fly up for whatever reason.
so they come up various times of the year. I can get you the dates. We're putting the calendar together for you. We have something that is preliminary. It's still a work in progress, but we're working on something that's gonna be for the whole board, so you know what is going on, what meetings are, when they are, where they are, how they are, stuff like that. Yeah, we're about 85% done. We just wanted to make sure that it's solid before we
Okay. Moving on to item 4, public forum. Pursuant to the Government Code Section 54954.3, the Brown Act, members of the public shall be afforded the opportunity to speak on any agenda item. The board president will call for public comment. Those wishing to address the board on a matter that is not on the agenda within the jurisdictional authority of the district, they do so during the public forum. Follow the procedures for speaking. I now open it to public. Go ahead, Sheree.
I just have a question. Why are we doing the RFP yet for the rate study? I mean,
we're developing it right now and working with legal to make sure that it's perfect. It is in process right now.
I mean, it's like 3 years behind with it, 2 years.
Any more public comment? Okay. I'll now close the public comment forum of this meeting and open it up now to approval of the minutes.
Consent calendar.
Consent calendar, excuse me, for approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
I have one comment on that consent calendar before you go down that path. The review of forms, I don't know if everybody had a look at it. There was supposed to be one other item added to that And that was this little flyer that was supposed to have been added to it.
So I put a form, and I'll explain if you'll indulge me. That is a flyer that goes out after all of closer to irrigation season, when we realize how much availability we have. So that is not something that we are sending out. The forms are time sensitive, that they have to be sent out before Christmas time.
Yeah.
So that's why that's not in there. And it's just being reworked. There was blank space. We wanted to make the font bigger, yada,
So
yada,
that's
yada.
what the irrigation had pushed forward to come to
Yes.
the board.
Correct, and it's not anything that's not gonna continue on, and it's not anything that's gonna not come back to the board. We just want to have it tight before it comes back, and that has a little bit less of a timeline, because that doesn't get mailed out until like February.
Okay.
Any other public comment on any of the consent calendar items? May I get a motion to approve consent
I
calendar?
think you had a motion from
Yeah, there's a
Director.
vote on the floor.
I'll second
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously to pass the consent calendar.
Don't forget the opposed.
Any opposed? None opposed. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Passes unanimously.
it. Need one? Oh, okay.
Office Finance Managers Report.
Pardon me. That's good.
I would just ask if there's any board members that have any comments or questions on the Office Finance Manager's report.
Rick Stoll.
Just looking at the budget to actuals, there's the 5,300, 5,400, 5,600 that are over budget at this time. Is that primarily due to expenses made year to date that are kind of focused on the year round? That kind of puts that bump on the road?
It has to do with some erosion control that we started to do, I believe. 53, I'm trying to get to it, I think it's low.
Why 5,400's over target? Like, we're supposed to be at 33%, but it's over, it's just shy of 40%. There are a lot of 5,600 annual costs that are in September,
That answers my question.
so it'll just
That
end up
one, yeah.
catching up at the end.
That's what I hope to hear.
In 5,400, there is a lot of government reporting costs.
Yeah, the water audit comes, some of that cost comes out of there, and we did.
Okay.
We had some, vehicle maintenance, we had to do repair.
All right, thank you.
And just for the record, though, I would say it's not over budget. If nothing is over 50%, if you look.
No, it's not. It's just if you look at year to date, we should be about 33%, and some of them are 7% over.
I see.
The expenses are above a straight line.
I
And
see.
my question is that we're not looking at a year as everything's paid in full.
Correct.
They should catch up.
Thank you.
And I just had a comment, all my questions were answered, just if we could have the year-to-date report for the vendors, just so we could keep track to make sure if we have any contracts that we're.
So I don't think we have, yes, we could definitely absolutely put that together. I
Well,
don't
instead
think,
of the monthly, I could just do year to date. Because you'll see the monthly checks in the check report.
Yeah.
I'll now open this to public comment.
Yeah, that was my one comment. The year to date, it was in November, but this month is just October. So, the check for LSL 35368, like $29,000 is that for 1 month, and why? Pretty high.
due to the audit, extra costs in association with the audit. We were starting the new audit.
Yeah, but they're not our auditors.
Yes, but they work with our auditors.
Okay, well, they're up to $80,000 out of a $90,000 yearly budget for LSL. That's going on the budget quick. And then what is government tax seminars? 1,070?
Those are seminars that our office manager and our HR supervisor, HR specialist attended to learn the updated codes for all the different taxes and fees and things that we have to pay throughout the year.
Okay. And then Reed and Graham, I've never seen that name.
Erosion control contractor.
And then just really quick, the Crown Motors, was that for the dump truck?
What was this?
It was like 90 something.
Yeah, that's for the dump truck. Thank you.
Utility bid.
And
No.
that's it.
That was the 550.
It's the dump truck.
What? The utility,
Is it the utility? Okay.
the
I thought it was a
utility
dump
truck?
truck.
That was last time.
But then he thought that was a dump truck.
I think it's the dump truck.
The dump.
That's what we've been.
All right, that's my only question.
Whatever. We can fight about it later.
Any further staff comment?
No.
Okay. No, okay. Informational items. We will receive all these reports and we'll open these items to the public comments after all have been given. Board reports. Like to start out with Director Swallow. Do you have any?
Well, I was gonna piggyback on Director Saunders as far as going to the Mountain County, Water Resource Association. He had some things written in there, and so I'd like to defer to him. One comment I wanted to make is that I thought was very appropriate for the person from CAL FIRE to say that our district is in the line of fire.
Anything else, Director?
No, thank you.
Director Saunders? Oh, you want to go?
I'm deferring to you too, so
All right.
take it away.
Basically, the Mountain Counties Water Resource Association had its fall 2023 forum. Myself, Director Thornborough and Director Stovall were there as director, and we had our GM and Adam Brown were there. And Morgan from the grant committee was also on one of the panels. This seems to be one of the themes going throughout is fire safe on the divide, wildfire traps. This was covered in pretty much Aqua as well and Aqua JPIA. And the presentation was pretty good about collaboration and basically what we're doing with the CAL FIRE grant for fire mitigation. Although at Alaska meeting, the things that were looked at that meeting is there. Then we had the Aqua conference, so the report on the conference. Basically, we had the 3 committees that I attended, and one of the panels that I prepared for the conference. We can see is on the second page, so that's the before the fire emergency operations best practices for wildfire preparedness from California, Sierra Nevada region. So we have 3 operations and or general managers from the 3 past fires. So we had Paradise represented, Caldor, and ourselves with Mosquito. And we also had the senator there, Senator Marie Alvarado. So we were able to pose questions to help us with the challenges and also thank her for the check that was there. And the other updates I can chime in with Mitch when we do the Aqua JPIA report.
I'd just like to make another comment. At that meeting, both Nick Snyder and the person who was
Morgan, yeah.
with the Forest Service grant, excellent presentation to the whole region about what is happening in our district. Very well received.
I did really well.
Adam did a great job again at the Aqua presentation. That one was well received. I got a lot of good comments from that one.
Thank you. Director Thornborough, that's a pass it to Donna.
Yep.
I just have the 2 committees that I have for the month.
Director Thornborough, would you pass it to me?
How come it's up to me to pass?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, would you like to go and give your report?
No, I deferred to Mike to be.
Well, so nothing else. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll give my report. I attended the JPIA Aqua Conference.
Hold on a second. We have slides.
Is that?
Actually, slides to show up.
You doing a slideshow?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha. Oh.
This is a first.
Yeah, well, I'm doing it, but I didn't.
Well,
Do it.
you better be good at it.
Okay.
Want to be president.
Okay, Director Saunders and I attended with, Nick and Adam, certain portions of this conference, but, my responsibility there was being a boarding director for JPIA. Next slide. It's a government risk pool that offers secure, stable, and cost-effective insurance solutions for California water agencies. Next slide. So, CWIF is the California Water Insurance Fund that is fully owned and controlled by JPIA, and it's created by the JPIA to offer an alternative place to obtain insurance coverage for 8 JPIA members. And provide some of the coverage for the JPIA liability and workers' compensation programs. The JPIA has catastrophic funds of approximately CWIF that are invested with the CWIF, and they must be ready to disperse in catastrophic events should the need arises. The investment income from this insurance fund, from the California Water Insurance Fund, is 3.58% in the 3-year short-term track record of the existence of the fund versus our 5-month very short-term track record of our investments here at the district of 5.4%. And that totaled $8.77 million investment gain on the current market value of $163 million under management that backstop to our insurance pool.
I'll just chime in to help.
Yeah.
That was in 2018. I know no one remembers when I came back from the Opera JPIA and we voted on having the California Water Insurance Fund. And basically that was the tip of the storm where they were seeing it was becoming difficult to insure the water agencies because of the wildfire threat. So they created this fund, which is their own captive insurance fund. So all of our premiums go into the California Water Insurance Fund, and we're able to use that as our self-insurance. And then from that captive, we can get higher insurance, which allows them to make the negotiations. So that's why we have lower and more stable rates for property, liability, workers' comp, and our health benefits. So that's one of the reasons why we have that pooled risk over time, which helps usually keep it down. But as we've seen what happened with the catastrophic wildfires, that's impacting even that because they had to pay out of that. So that's been starting to affect the ability to keep it stable.
That's what I understand. It was 10% under last year, and this year past year was 10% over. So it's a net wash and an expected raise. Premiums about 12%.
Yep, they'll come up on this. So
okay.
The other thing is it's nonprofit. So any premiums that we didn't spend, we used to get back in refund checks. But now since the rates are going to go up, we're not getting refund checks back this time.
Mm-hmm. And the CWIF has a management firm out of Nevada. And the JPIA has a management firm, an investment fund out of Utah, just like we have one of our own here at the district, and different asset allocation models and different requirements. So let's see.
The pooled programs. So those are the programs that we are in as a district, if we go back to that. So we're in the property, liability, workers' comp, and health benefits. So that's what we, when you see the JPIA normal cost and for the pool programs, and then we can pay the health benefits. And we're also enrolled in the cybersecurity liability. And Director President McDonald and myself talked to the person that's running that program. So they will come in and brief the board on what free resources that provides to us to help with cybersecurity and training from the staff.
That's also, there's conference session times that discusses all of this in detail. So I was surprised to find out we were.
So was I.
Yeah. So they're anxious to come see us shortly, next few months. Next slide, please. We were awarded the Employee Benefits Wellness Grant 2023. And President's special recognition. They have a loss ratio of 20% or less in liability, property, or workers' compensation. That's what qualifies you for the special recognition. And
Those are the certificates, the 3 certificates we received are included in the general manager report.
okay. Thank you.
And usually we get checks back for them, but as I said, this time, since the rates are going up, they didn't provide any refund checks.
So even though we got an award, we got no cash.
We got 3 awards and no cash.
Okay.
We need to revisit which awards we really want to concentrate on.
Yeah, rather take the cash than the awards, probably. Yeah.
The
Next,
other thing was, with one of their risk managements, they do have grants for drone registration, so, we can apply for that to get reimbursed when we do the, FAA and all of that licensing, so.
Cool. Don't you already have a drone and drone up?
Yes, yeah, we could get money for the registration.
and then a large section, maybe the preponderance of the information we received at the conference was risk and insurance challenges in a wildland urban interface. Just in summary here, the amount of land burned in the western wildfires has increased, and so has the number of people living in these private fire-prone areas. The JPI is looking into different modeling options to lessen the fire risks using best practices and gathering information between agencies such as the National and State Forests, BLM Land Management, HOA developments, fire departments, fire safe councils, and water districts to pool in their expertise together to give informed decisions on instead of regional rate increases, for instance, because we're in a certain geographic area with a zip code, there'll be potentially different rates within those geographic areas based on how well we harden and communicate. And I'll move on to explain that here a second. There's a disconnect in understanding the risk regarding wildfire risk. While legacy data systems won't work, we can't suppress, regulate, or price our way out of an water-wide urban interface conundrum we're in. We need coordinated policies between all those agencies. Risk versus as opposed to hazard maps, regional hazard maps. Insurance rate decisions based on actual risk versus broad brush blanket regional insurance premiums. Mitigation policy focus. Community level mitigation, hard and defensible space, and building codes, including wildlife prepared homes and roofs. And finally, to get this, accumulate the best practice community layouts and green belts model to interrupt wildland fire patterns to protect home structures, blocking the movement of fire to and through these areas, and protect water district infrastructure. So combined, as a region, we have different models we're looking into and contributing to by different agencies to come up with an overall big plan to reduce risk, premiums, and fire in general. So that's all I have to say about it. Next item. Gave this yeah,
Legislative report.
yeah, legislation report.
So, on the way here, Aqua sent their full update, which I'll provide in January, but some of the key ones was, that was signed into law. SB 557, which updates the Brown Act, and that was the, emergency teleconferencing one. So what that did was it eliminated the sunset date for Assembly Bill 361, which would have expired in January. So that's, going to be, the sunset date is no more. This is a permanent one. It amends the existing teleconference requirements and extends the previous 30-day findings, or now it's 45-day findings. Remember, during the emergency every 30 days, we had to reaffirm that we were doing that AB 361, so now it'll be 45 days. And eliminates references to social distancing because it's just going to be any declared emergency. And it still keeps the special circumstances will be still gets eliminated in 2026. And another thing that I'll be presenting is that's interesting is there is a grant that's now in law, so we know there's prescribed burning. There's now grants available for prescribed grazing. So we can get goats for the district and to do vegetation mitigation with money to get the goats to come and do the grazing, and then with whatever animals they have to protect them against coyotes and mountain lions, and then go away. So that's something we can look at as well. So with the legislative updates, one of the recommendations is to bring the teleconferencing policy back to the policy committee so we can update that and maybe look into the grazing, prescribed grazing. And that's it for me.
Yeah, I wanted to say that they're doing some grazing on your side of the county, our side of the county, in the state property over there by the fire station. And I believe, Nicholas, did you hook them up with water for the animals?
I did hook them up. I put them in touch with the right people.
Okay. Thank you. That was spearheaded by our ALT Fire Safe Council.
Yeah. Another thing that'll come up, I'll discuss in January, is there is a new bill which does affect domestic well owners. So if you have tenants, there is now new laws affecting you if you have a domestic well. So
I have a question. You put all those goats out there. There might be a conflict with the irrigation ordinance.
Why?
Well, because in the irrigation ordinance, it says that these animals aren't supposed to be put in the ditch.
Yeah, they're not in the ditch. That's not what he's saying.
What's gonna keep them from going in the ditch?
Well, that's what the shepherd or the person who is in charge of the goats needs to do. We're not using them for this is not something that we're using. It's something we're allowed to do. People are allowed to use. So we're not doing this. It's not a practice that we're looking at right now.
Oh, okay.
and if you did, you could just get them out of the ditch if you were gonna do it.
Well, my thinking was that what areas you're gonna put all these goats?
We're not. We're not. We're not using goats.
Why can't I bring it up?
It's available.
We're not. Just funny. And all I wanted to mention, closing, I didn't know till recently, I had thought that only ewes could prevent forest fires. But anyway, moving right along.
Oh my gosh.
Operations man.
No, it wasn't.
Like, don't encourage him.
That's a goat joke.
Operations manager report, Adam, please, to present.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry, Adam.
That's all right.
Bang the gavel for that one, really?
I gabbled myself.
I have no goat.
Anybody got a tissue?
So leading off, as I just see on the chart stuff, you gotta start the rebound. It's at 87% of capacity as of the first of the month. Important to note, this season, we did not go below 80% in Stuffy, which is pretty good for the year. So I think we have a couple of good storms. We should start, see that increase even more up to capacity. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit in the report. As for production numbers, their average is what we've seen historically for this time of year. The only thing outside the norm for the treatment plant is we collected our Title 22 samples, which is some additional analytes we test annually. Did PFAS sampling for US EPA. We also have just some maintenance projects we're gonna be working on down there. I'm clearing out the drying beds, some pump upgrades, some analyzer upgrades. Just really trying to refine the technology down there and make the treatment plant optimize the treatment plant operations. Also finishing up the recruitment for the water treatment plant operator 2 should end at the end of the month. So we'll have to update that shortly. As for the gross water use versus time, again, that kind of ties directly to our treated water numbers. So that is historically that's similar to the previous years. Over time for this period actually has come down. So we're using a little bit less water throughout the system. Second page covers our tasks that we've been completed this month. a lot of our focus was on upcountry, and it's still, our focus is still there. The weather is actually holding out decently for us to get some work done, which includes road repair, gravel placement, the pipe job that we finished up beginning of the month. And also we have some, our standard water line breaks, our standard maintenance, standard ditch checks, all those different things, some vegetation clearing, even though we've kind of winded down on that for this season. Moving on, next page, I have some just photo representation of some of the tasks we did, showing clearing the dam, some just different areas throughout the system. We do have our dam inspection coming up in late December, so we're just making sure every item that is generally requested of us, we have that covered, which typically includes making sure our cracks between our spillway joints is sealed, our vegetation is cleared on the toe of the dams, toe of each side of the dam itself. Also complete our annual survey for the monuments to make sure the dam's not shifting at all. I don't know if you were gonna talk about that or not, but no, it's all right. Okay. So that's that. We're updating the weirs at the bottom. We have 2 leakage weirs. We're updating those as well. We have some corrosion on this, replacing those. Next page is just a main break repair. Like I said, we had 8 of them this month. Pretty substantial. Usually it doesn't run that many labor hours or for break, but this kind of times they're larger breaks that need a little more resources to get complete. Moving on to our capital improvement program. So the really first update is the distribution tank coating. Near the contract, I know it's taking a little bit longer than I anticipated. We're gonna contract with our engineers and inspection. We're gonna start with the red berry tank and do a visual inspection of that, so we can have a really refined request for proposal, so we know exactly what kind of costs we're gonna see from when they come in and do that work. At the time, the mow fee is decent enough where we can have them inspect the Angel Camp tank at the same time, so we'll have that lined up for the following year. I'm still working on vehicle replacement, so during consent, we had some surplus items on there, and we'll continue to assess, as we move forward. I know we really talked about, a larger dump truck, so we'll kind of see where our surplus puts us, and we'll have that discussion of it as it comes up. Mosquito fire mitigation, so the road repair, I say complete, but really, it's substantially complete. There's always might be another one that comes up, but those projects we outlined, we completed those. Erosion mitigation, we feel like we're a good point for the year, heading into winter season. Still, every time you go up there, if there's a little rain event, you just see a lot of silt moving. I don't know if you guys have noticed driving to the confluence. Any rain event you see, it turns the Little Fork chocolate. So there's a lot of dirt that can move up there. So we done what we can, have our fingers crossed, ready for the winter season. The levee road installing gravel. Having progress at 80%. We're almost nearly 100% complete now. We got all the way, the whole entire section. They probably actually finished today. We have some just touch-up work to do where we had increased traffic. So we're gonna touch that up and finish that up for the season. Able to get us down there throughout the winter, which is good for some projects I'll talk about in a minute. The master meters, yeah, we those have started arriving. We have 4 out of 6 of them, I believe. So we're just going to start planning for those in January, February, after we get through the holiday season. Same with the treated line replacement. That's kind of on the same schedule. Another update there. So general activities moving from there. So the FEMA reimbursement, we had 3 original projects. Finally, I think I've answered all the questions for the road slide we did that happened just December, January. It's in the final review process for reimbursement. That was about $100,000 project. Wall Lake dredging, we were arduously working through that project. It's very complicated, working with FEMA and understanding fire impacts and operating impacts. We're still working through that. The second one, the USDA Rural Development Disaster Assistance. So we've had, that is kind of full steam ahead right now. The main what we're doing is preparing our engineering report for our application, along with our environmental review. We worked with USD up front to align all our documents. We need all the requirements, and that includes piping majority of the ditch from the Narrows, which is upstream of structure 2 to structure 3. And we're kind of setting priority areas in case we don't get all the funding. So we're gonna start with high priority areas, medium priority areas, and low priority areas. And our engineering firm is going to outline that with the full report to submit. Hopefully our goal is by the end of the year, not like the first or second week in January. So hopefully probably not by the January meeting, by the February meeting, we should have a really good update on where that project stands. Additional grants I kind of forgot to put on there. The $250,000 appropriation and the CAL FIRE grant. Just a slow process as we're gonna do the paperwork, so hopefully we'll have that finalized soon so we can keep moving forward with those two projects. Next, I kind of did a summary, and this is not a monthly thing, this is a yearly. I was gonna try to start putting this together of just our irrigation fieldwork activities. I tried to break it out with our new cartograph OpenGov system. We can break out where we're allocating our resources for any kind of work, as customer calls or just our daily checks, maintenance, vegetation clearing. So this kind of provides a summary of where we're at and kind of gives us an idea of where we can improve, where we need to put our effort during the off season. And I'll just mention the bottom, a couple of asterisks by Upper Canal and system-wide daily checks. There's proportionate for the amount of water, treated water versus irrigation water, because that covers both the areas. So I just kind of try to break that apart. So it's cost is shared between treating and irrigation, those two sections. So moving on to the next page, this is a yearly water year assessment we do over time. So it's pretty self-explanatory. It kind of has treated water, purchase irrigation, or conveyance loss between years. And as you can see, purchase irrigation, our demand has gone down a little bit, but the percentage of water we divert or deliver has increased.
Oh, okay, I understand.
So what that says is our operation and our improvements are making more water available in the system. If it's either whatever it may be used for. We have, and that's canal lining projects. The treated water is a smaller number, so if we get a large water line replacement, we got that water loss down, we increase that too. So I know those numbers kind of look deceiving, but that's really good numbers. You see irrigation treated kind of going up, the percent of water diverted, and our conveyance loss is going down. So that means we're making progress towards being more efficient, right? That's kind of what that's saying there. So it kind of summarizes, say, our irrigation deliveries decreased by 4%, but our total water diverted for beneficial use decreased by 10%. So that's good. So water supply budget. This is kind of the first look, I think, before we get into the next year, which we've been doing this for a couple of years now. It's a really good outlook. So it's 90. So just to explain the chart, there's a 95% chance that Stumpy Meadows will have an inflow of 6,500 acre feet, which basically means we only need about 2,000 acre feet to fill. There's 95% chance nothing's going to fill, basically. And as you go through the forecast chart from our model, it shows that every situation, every scenario, we don't foresee a restriction in water deliveries for the 2024 water season. And the last page is our monthly water demand assessment, and this covers our gross water use versus our residential water use. And you see our residential has gone down quite a bit. A lot of outdoor watering has stopped at this point, so you usually see a reduction in that for this time of year. And I think that is my operation report.
Thank you. Okay, we have, go ahead.
Okay.
Are they still doing ditch clearing? They're cleaning around the ditch.
Yeah, yes, we still do that, you know, so it's bigger stuff. We don't do a lot of cutting this time of year, but we'll still do clearing just to, you know, especially up here, even if there's other sections, we'll still do it. You know, it's right now, we're kind of more focused on projects, you know, like our country, right now, that's where a lot of our resources are going.
Rick Stoll.
Given that Stuffy is so near to being full and there's gonna be some significant spillover in the future. If and when we do have a hydro electric plant up there, is that overflow able to go through the hydro?
We'll have to not use overflow. We'll end up opening the bottom of the dam
Okay,
and allowing the flow to flow through the bottom, similar to how
that's what I mean.
Folsom Dam operates. You know, there's still some passover when it's for under flood control, so we would operate much similar to how Folsom operates.
So we could utilize the inflow to go through the hydro.
That is correct. We would be blasting as much as we could, as much as the hydro could handle, and then whatever we would have to use as flood control over the top.
All right, thank you.
Director Seaman.
We were having problems with the meters and you had some sent in. And do we ever get the report on what,
They're in, but I don't have results yet.
and how close are we complete of installing all of them now? Cause weren't we waiting for some?
There's a handful, so, yeah, they're 2-inch and a half ones that have not gone in yet, and we don't have.
Okay, so maybe if next time we can have a status on that, whether they're clean.
As soon as we have the report from that meter, we'll get it. We just haven't received any information.
And then we had gotten that drone under the premise that you were gonna start using it to run the ditches. Are we doing that yet?
We're not, so the drone pictures you do see is not the district's drone. We have purchased a district's own drone, but to fly it as a commercial, we have to finalize our FAA course first to use actual district drone. So once we have that, which we're in the process of doing that.
Okay, and then it would be good to see what progress is being made, you know, drone versus a body out there trying to check the ditches.
We could have a body to fly the drone.
Director Thunder. Okay. And all I had was result to the meter. That's all I was going to bring up. Thank you. Now the solar presentation, I'm not sure who all the reps are.
We have two different companies that are going to be presenting to us. We have Veolius, is it Veolius Solar? Or the
Veolia North America.
Veolia North America, and then online we have SiteLogic. So we're gonna let Veolia go first because they're in the house. So they do have what's that? You have president?
Yeah, did that get moved up in the agenda?
It's right there. It's right under there.
Okay, under operations.
Sorry.
Okay.
So we're gonna invite, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. I apologize. Her name is Mr. John up to do a presentation on his company's proposal, and then we will have SiteLogic on do a presentation. So this is to look at potential offsetting some of our energy costs, mostly at the Sweetwater treatment plant. So John, please.
All right. Thank you, President McDonald and board, for inviting me here today to share with you what we found. Next slide. My name is John Burdett, and I'm a certified energy manager, a certified demand side energy manager, and an accredited professional for the leadership in environmental and efficiency design. I've got 27 years of experience doing this type of work for our clients. And we're also major sponsors and very active in organizations like Aqua, which we just got back from sunny Indian Wells. Our programs are also sponsored by and approved by PG&E. We are a qualified energy services company with the state of California Department of General Services. And we're also very active in the League of California Cities. Next, please. So utility costs are on the rise. You may have heard the PG&E has just passed with the CPUC another price increase of about 23%. On average, this is a data set from the Consumer Price Index over the last 40 years. The electricity in the PG&E territory specifically is up 11.32% annually on average. So that's hard to grasp. We think about how everyone freaked out when inflation went above 3% for all other goods. But on average, over the last 40 years, PG&E has been well above that. And with the wildfires, having to harden the systems and the grounding of the wires, and the additional demand that's coming online for zero emission and electric vehicles is forcing them to do major grid upgrades, which all of those costs are passed directly onto the ratepayer. Next. So we approached you guys and we were talking about the Net Energy Metering Program 2.0, which has come and gone in most cases as of April of 2024. However, if you have multiple meters at a site, there's a loophole that has just been closed and is good until February called Net Energy Metering -A, which is aggregation of meters. So NEM-A, they didn't close it on April 14th, they just closed it in November. And we have a 90-day window from November to about February 9th to get your facilities here at the headquarters grandfathered in under that Net Energy Metering 2.0 program. Now, Net Energy Metering 2.0 gives you almost a 1-to-1 ratio for the bill credit you get when you export electricity onto the grid versus what you pay. So they call that retail rate. PG&E sells it to you at retail, and when we put it back on the grid, we get almost retail. But when they switch to the NEM 3.0, we now get wholesale for exporting that to the grid, which reduced the benefit by 50 to 75%, making a lot of solar projects smaller and or financially unfeasible for our clients. So the CPUC will grandfather in these older systems. However, if you do want to take advantage of the NEM-A version 2.0, we would have to have preliminary designs and the interconnection applications submitted to PG&E before February 9th. Okay. Also, we wrestle with public safety power shutoffs and wildfires. So some of the systems that we'll propose today will address resiliency. Also utilizing battery energy storage systems, or BESS. Next. Also, what I learned that there was a lot of smoke in the area, right, when we had the wildfires. And there's systems that we can put in place in your air handling systems here for critical infrastructure that needs to stay online that can take that smoke out of the air if these buildings are occupied and running. Because many HVAC systems have outdoor air intakes because they're supposed to bring in a certain amount of fresh air. However, if the air outside isn't fresh, you either have to shut that off, which is against code, or filter it out. So we have a solution for that as well. Next. So here in our program, we've done a preliminary analysis and we're ready to share with you what we found. Next. In meeting with staff, we came up with some program goals. One was to reduce the long-term cost savings through reduced electricity, gas, and water usage. To maybe upgrade some antiquated and inefficient equipment like HVAC systems here in this building have some zoning issues. Sometimes people are hot and others are cold, and we can address those by either replacing those HVAC systems with higher efficiency units that save energy, and then rework the zoning controls so everybody's happy. We also determined that, the state wants us to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and the carbon footprint reduction. And we also were told that we need to identify as many grants, rebates, and financial solutions as possible to make the project feasible from a finance perspective. We also were going to minimize the financial and technical risk to the district, and then also provide the comprehensive funding solution with maybe some electric vehicle charging stations as well as you convert over to electric or zero emission vehicles. Next, please. We'll go through this whole list, but when we do our investment grade audit or our IGA, these are all of the different measures that we might look at. So we follow the state loading order with energy efficiency first. So before we finalize the size of the solar, in most cases, it's more economical to reduce your consumption. So we look at your lighting from an energy efficiency perspective, make sure everything's on the LEDs. We look at all your pumps to make sure that we can put VFDs wherever we can to help reduce the energy consumption on those pumps. And then all of the mechanical and electrical equipment that we may have out there. For this facility, we also identified building envelope measures like weatherization, insulation, maybe adding storm windows to provide a second pane to the glass on the windows, which would not only make it more efficient, but it would make it more comfortable for the occupants who work here every day. Next. So here at the district HQ administration facility, you can see we've identified HVAC, insulation, weatherproofing, LED lighting upgrades, maybe some chargers for electric vehicles. At the heart of the project is a solar renewable energy system that will be tied into the multiple meters at this site and will offset 100% of the load here at the admin building. And then our version of an energy management system is called HubGrade. And we'll have real-time measurement on what all of these measures are doing to save electricity to where you can look at to make sure that we're on target, meeting our commitments to the district. It'll be used as the measurement and verification platform to ensure that the solar is producing the power. And if it's not, we'll all get an alarm and we'll run out here very quickly because we have a performance guarantee. So in the event that it's not performing, we would have to run out here very quickly and fix it, or we would have to write you a check for the difference. And the difference between the solar energy being generated, the cost of that, and what it costs now to go to PG&E, which is going to be 23% higher in the very near future. Next, please. At the Sweetwater Trail, again, we identified VFDs, LED lighting upgrades, maybe some charging infrastructure, solar renewable energy generation here, because there's only 1 meter at this facility, is not able to be grandfathered in that 2.0, so we will be under the new tariff. However, with the battery energy storage system, we'll be able to store that electricity on site versus giving it to the grid at the wholesale rate. So we'll capture that electricity and then use it when it's dark out at night and or when energy is really expensive, and then we'll dispatch the batteries. This can also be used with an optional microgrid control to tie into your diesel backup generator and offer resiliency in the event of an emergency. So rather than burning the dirty, expensive diesel fuel in the generator, in many cases, we can hold the facility online with the solar and the battery storage before having to turn the generator on. There are also a number of grants that we'll get into for these types of resiliency options. And then, of course, we would monitor this site with our HubGrade technology as well. And because Veolia is not just an energy company, we're a contract operator for water and wastewater facilities, that we completely understand all of the metrics that you also might want to track on the wastewater or the water treatment facility here and build that right into the dashboard. So the solar will pay for the dashboard, but you can pull in all kinds of cool things that you might want to see for the water treatment plant as well. Next. Now at Walton Lake, we looked at this, and it's kind of a smaller load, and it's not a great spot for solar. We did look at solar photovoltaics where they can float. And we determined that we might want to hold off on this site because floating the solar right now, if you get that elaborate system out on that water, and if you have to dredge that in the near future, you would have to take it all down and then put it all back, which is extremely expensive. So we were trying to locate solar on rooftops and ground mounts, which is also less expensive and would provide a more handsome return on investment. And then obviously it's easier to service because we're not swimming out into the lake to service it. Next. So this project, the way we currently have it designed, and we could make it a little bigger, a little smaller once we get into that investment grade audit, if we're selected. But it's like removing 245 metric tons of CO2 equivalent or greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, which helps combat global warming and climate change. And we all know that the district here has already experienced some of the effects of climate change, the wildfires. Next, please. So we offer budget neutrality solutions. So what we're doing is we're targeting the funds that are currently in your PG&E budget to pay the electric bill. We're going to redirect those funds into these investments that will reduce your bill. And we have options for project financing and debt service, which are subsidized, and we'll talk about those. And then the grants, the rebates, and incentives to help buy those projects down. It will automatically give you a positive cash flow once we turn the switch on. And then once the debt service is paid off, the district will receive all of the cash flow benefits. Next. So our funding solutions, we're recommending the use of the California Energy Commission Energy Conservation Assistance Act, or the ECA loan, which is a 1% interest loan program that the California Energy Commission provides to municipalities and special districts to fund the remaining balance of these projects. So if we can't fully fund it with a grant or the rebates and incentives, then this is by far the most competitive financing vehicle available to the municipality today, especially in today's rate environment. And they're very high. And then we would also leverage the Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA. At the beginning of the year, the federal government passed the IRA, which allows municipalities or public entities to receive a cash payment in lieu of a tax credit. So in the past, you would have to go to a private entity, you would have to work with them, they would take the tax credit and then in theory pass it on to the municipality. However, when that happened, most of the tax credit was not passed on to the municipality. It was kept internally with the middleman. But now you get the full tax credit. And we may be able to get a 10% kicker if we're in the disadvantaged community status, right? So we'll take a look. I don't think Sweetwater Trail is, but up here might be, right? So we can get you a little extra there. Next. So the program that we provided right now provides a return on investment of over 600%. We're looking at about a $1.4 million capital expenditure. It cash flows from the day it starts. And these projections will save the district over $6 million in avoided energy costs over the life of the system. So these systems are designed for 30 years, and that includes all of the O&M costs and all of the equipment costs for that 30 years. Now, there's a couple funding vehicles that are also time sensitive that I'd like to mention. One is the Federal Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. If we're going to make a play for that, we have grant writers that will help assist the district in securing those funds. Those applications are due in April of 2024. And then there's also the Distributed Electricity Backup Assets, or the DEBA program, which has a similar application due date. And there's a workshop coming out on December 18th that I'll be attending to get more details on that program. This program is going to help us buy those batteries for resiliency, so you can run your facilities utilizing electricity stored in battery storage for the backup. Next. So our hub grade, we have, for example, this is our San Francisco office, where we have our West Coast Center of Excellence, where we monitor these types of systems for our clients. And if they go out of whack, we send out technicians right away to fix them. And then you can see all of the other things that can be built into it. Today, we're talking about monitoring, measuring, and verifying energy production and energy efficiency measures. But there is a plethora of optimization, predictive and analytics. There is an AI umbrella over this with human oversight that can very quickly help you determine problems and run your water treatment facilities more effectively and efficiently. Next. So we started this journey back around June. We got all your utility data. We did some preliminary site walks. We came in today, I guess, and developed some energy conservation or ECM selections that we think are good. And then if you decide to move forward with us, we would like to have a memorandum of agreement to do the design. And then that backup fee in the MOA is completely 100% refundable if you move forward with the implementation of the project. However, if you back out, then we would ask you to reimburse us for our engineering and our services to date. I would encourage the board to make a decision quickly and to get in line for the California Energy Commission Eco Loan funding. There's a wait list on that funding. It's a revolving loan program through the state. So it's refunded at the end of the fiscal year. So July 1st, there's more money available. And then at the end of the year, December 31st, January 1st, there's another funding round. So when we take these loans out to help our clients, there's 2 payments a year, one at the end of June and one at the end of December. But there's a wait list of 7. We just got the city of Arvin on that list and a couple other of our clients. So assuming we can move fast enough, you'll be number 8. And it's first come, first serve for a qualified application. And the application requires a board resolution or they don't even look at it. So if you pass a board resolution in the very near future to at least apply for this loan, then we can get the loan application period started right away. And then once we get that, then it's just doing the final development on the program, getting through the California Government Code 4217 procedural process, which requires a 2-week public notice and a public hearing before you approve the project. And then we're off to the races.
I have a question. If we do the interconnection agreement, we get the design, all that stuff. How long do we have to build the project?
You have 36 months from the date of the interconnection application.
Is that to be completed or to start?
It can be completed and online.
Okay.
Permission to operate, PG&E calls it PTO. It's not your vacation time. So.
So the equipment was designed to last 30 years. You get warranties and guarantees to last 30 years.
It is. So in the financial projections that we provided to staff, we have equipment replacements scheduled for year 15 on the batteries and then year 20 for the inverters. And we will have the additional warranties purchased with the equipment. So you'll be covered on parts and labor for those durations.
What about the panels?
The panels are warranted, depending on your panel selection, 25 to 30 years. They have a power performance warranty. So on their spec sheets and in their warranty documentation, they will replace the panel if we find through our hub grade control system that panel is not operating to specification.
But are they scheduled, like you said that the inverters were scheduled to be replaced in so many years, and the batteries like 15 years, are the panels part of that schedule to be replaced?
At the end of 30 years, we would make a determination then. There are no moving parts in a solar panel. It's a solid state device that the sunlight excites the electrons in.
Right.
So SMUD did a study and let theirs run for about 45, 50 years before they replaced them.
They do degrade over time, though. Is that calculated into the ROI?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So certain panels have a higher degradation factor than other panels. So we use tier one, financially stable companies that provide these solar panels and have a proven track record in degradation. So on one end, it's about 1% degradation per year.
Mhm.
And on a higher efficiency end, you can get to maybe a half of 1% degradation per year.
Mhm.
And then they typically level off around 75 to 80%.
Mhm.
Then they stop degrading as fast.
So that's in the calculations, good. And how long's your company been around?
Veolia was established in 1853 in Paris, France. We're a global company with 220,000 employees and growing. And our North American operations is in Boston, Massachusetts. And our West Coast operation, main headquarter building is at 100 Montgomery Street in San Francisco.
Mhm.
I live in Newcastle, California, so I work out of our Sacramento location. And I'm only about 30 minutes away to service you.
Do you have the ability to add on?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. As your facilities grow, you can absolutely add on.
What about, what's that slogan you might have? Reduce before you produce or something? Is that the?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's like the California state loading order I mentioned.
Mhm.
So we'll look at all of the energy conservation measures first
Mhm.
to reduce your load before we finalize the size of the solar system.
Does that include any of your analysis, any reflective material in the attic? Like Eagle Shield? To keep the cool in and the heat out and vice versa?
We looked at insulation. I'm not sure if we looked specifically at the Eagle Shield,
Mhm.
but I can find out for you.
Mhm.
And we would be open to it,
Mhm.
right? If that's what you'd like.
Okay. I think, what's the wholesale rate? I think on residential, you get around 20% on 20 cents on the dollar for what you produce and returning back to the system. 43 cents per kilowatt hour residential versus 9% for putting back on the grid. 9 cents.
Right. Now that they've switched to the net energy metering 3.0, it's a lot less.
Yeah.
At my house, I was an early adopter of solar and put it on with my two sons over 6 weekends. And we get a 1-for-1. So if they charge us 40 cents a kilowatt hour, we get 40 cents a kilowatt hour.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna add on now. I got grandfathered in on the NEM 2 because I didn't put in enough when I first put it in. So I'm gonna put in some more and then I'll go to the NEM 2 and get grandfathered in on that program. And that gives you almost a 1-for-1, but you have to pay what are called non-bypassable charges. So they've reduced the benefit to about 80% of retail value.
Did you calculate a cost to get the reduction up to where you base your energy need? Is there a cost for that? Is that covered some way too with the grant or?
Well, what we did is we actually downloaded, and Adam can attest to this, the 15-minute interval data from PG&E to run these calculations. So we took a snapshot of every 15 minutes of your electric bill and downloaded that into 2 programs that we use. One's called Helioscope, which takes into consideration your latitude and longitude. It takes into account your local weather patterns, as well as any shading that might be from trees or other obstructions. And then once we have the design for how many kilowatt hours that is annually, we run it in another model called Energy Toolbase, which provides us the exact energy savings, and it's very accurate. Right.
Thank you.
So anything that we do to model the facility, using Eagle Shield, for example, we could rerun those models quite easily.
Thank you.
You said you took snapshots of the electric bill, which just this office and ALT and the plant and
And the
ALT.
Sweetwater Trail, right? So Walton Lake, Sweetwater Trail, and here at this facility.
Okay, but you said that Walton Lake wasn't feasible to really do anything with.
Well, we were not seeing it's not feasible yet. It's gonna be a NEM 3 program.
Mhm.
But because of the dredging, we're not recommending that you move forward with anything floating on the lake right now.
Mhm.
And NEM 3 will still be available. So after we dredge that, then we can have a discussion on when do you think you're gonna dredge it again? Because if it's within 30 years, then you may not want to float it. And then the options there would be maybe to put some on the roof or or maybe cut down some trees for defensible space, and we could put some solar in there. Which I've seen other districts do. You call it very easy when you call it defensible space, to cut down trees. So there's options. But we are not recommending you do that right now. That might be a good phase 2.
Okay, so the main focus is here and Sweetwater.
Correct. With here having the most pressing timeline due to the net energy metering aggregation 2.0 program.
What's the, do you have a number that's calculated to account for the fact that the panels get covered with,
We do,
okay.
right? So that,
So
helioscope model, we actually run that model with fairly dirty panels, realizing that we don't live in a totally clean world. So if we're down in the Central Valley where there's a lot of agriculture around, we'll add quite a bit more of soiling. But those are some of the things that we can go over together and decide what soiling factor you want. It basically oversizes the system the more soiling you put on it. However, you have less frequent cleanings. As you get in your target production with dirty panels. Great questions. Next slide. So some of the value we bring, we're going to help you leverage these tax incentives and grant funding. We can upgrade some of your old inefficient equipment, maybe perform some capital improvements. We're definitely going to decrease your operating costs on electricity, but maybe some O&M as well. We're definitely going to hedge against historical high utility escalation rates. Maybe resolve some deferred maintenance items. And with the hub grade, we'll also help you develop a long-term sustainability plan because that's where the state of California is going. And you guys will have that all at your fingertips. Next slide. We also guarantee the performance with our guaranteed performance contracts. We're a sole source of responsibility, so there's no pointing at an engineering firm or a controls firm. It's one throat to choke. You'll have the measurement and verification system in place to see the performance in real time. And then we'll bring the financial solutions and the cost certainty. And then, there's nobody else in the industry that we compete with that has the water treatment infrastructure experiences we do.
You have on the batteries, have you determined what, how do you say, how long with the battery pack that you designed or that you put on there, how long will that run the plant? Have you figured that out yet?
Yes.
Or is there a number that you're gonna target for?
And well, right now for our base case, we solved the equation for return on investment and or the best financial performance. But once we get involved, if we're chosen to do the investment grade audit, we'll sit down and determine exactly how long you'd like that to be. Right now, what we're doing is we're modeling it to save you the most money. But typically, to answer your question, is 48 hours is what it could run at full load if everything were running.
Pretty extensive batteries.
Yeah, they are.
Are these inverters per panel or are they?
No, sure. Inverters are, in my opinion, per panel on a system of this size, would not be the best. So we have string inverters that we're proposing to where you put a number of panels on per string and potentially a power optimizer, which would be able to read each panel. But in the past, the inverter had been the weakest link of the solar system. So to have those in a centralized location for easy serviceability and or replacement is critical. On a residence where you have 24 of them, it might make sense to put what are called micro inverters under each panel, which converts the DC electricity to AC. However, in this situation, you would want to have string or centralized inverters.
Because if you have cloud cover, certain panels aren't being operated, it shuts a whole section off instead of individually. So it might, reduction would be significant if all inverters weren't
The microinverter.
microinverters, yeah.
Right, so I mentioned the power optimizers offer that same functionality with a string inverter.
Okay, and is this monitored in San Francisco, or does the company be able to see this themselves?
It'll be all here, right here, locally on your computers with the login credentials.
Mhm.
So we've had clients have an internal view of the dashboard, which has more information on it. And then they also have a public view of the dashboard, to where any concerned citizen or community member could go in and look at it as well.
Thank you.
That's all I had for you today.
Yeah, Mr. Dowd?
Does this whole system come with a Made in USA stamp on it?
Right.
That's a great question. And I would say that we are not using panels from China. However, we do procure from North America. So some of the things we have South Korea panels that are very good, tier 1. We have Canadian panels. There is about a 20% premium to go US panels. We may be able to get an extra 10% tax credit for that, which would net out as a 10% increase to use US panels. We feel that these other panels are great. They're assembled in America. And if there were a conflict overseas, we could still get parts and materials. If China decides to move on Taiwan, I don't think we're gonna get any support from a Chinese panel manufacturer, so.
No,
Your answer.
Yeah,
Sheree?
What's generally the amount of the backup fee, say for this site?
2%, $1.4 million.
Okay, and did you say in here the financing, how it happens?
That's right. So the financing will be done internally with Veolia and with the California Energy Commission and the Inflation Reduction.
So we don't have to pay anything?
All the money, none of the money from the capital budget should be required.
Okay.
We'll be redirecting the funds from your PG&E bill to pay for this system.
No?
Snow is calculated in the weather pattern, so we do oversize the system for snow. And then we also, if it's a shade structure or a ground mounted structure, we take snow load into consideration.
You have heated panels?
Heated panels take electricity, so.
Well, you have battery backup on it. And then do you actually have a person come out periodically to physically inspect, or you're only doing remote monitoring?
No, we do remote monitoring, annual maintenance, and then cleanings once or twice a year as needed.
Okay. And then where you were saying floating, is that on Walton, but not Stumpy? Walton?
Right.
Okay.
The floating solar arrays cost more.
Yeah, okay.
And
We have-
they're harder to.
And you can't cut trees down to have the solar panels fit?
Yeah, you can. In our original design, we proposed areas where we didn't need to cut any trees.
For Walton?
Yeah, for Walton specifically, there's not enough rooftop on that
Oh,
little
got it,
building.
got it.
So we would need to clear some ground.
Okay,
And one of the ways is to call it defensible space.
yeah. Right.
Which we were gonna do anyway.
Yeah.
Don?
Go ahead, Donna.
I just had one quick question on the calculations for the batteries. Are you including the fact that we're slightly colder than every place else?
Of course, yeah. Yep, absolutely. So they have a temperature range and extreme heat and extreme cold can degrade the battery. Yeah.
Dr. Stovall?
Just some quick math, which may be an error. You said there's the potential to save $6 million over 30 years,
That's right.
and that comes down to about $16,000 a month. I don't have our budget in front of us, but just looking at our expenses for PG&E for October, it comes to $3,500. Is that?
Yeah, well,
I would have to go pull the number.
We're looking at annual figures and we're guaranteeing that you can save $105,144 in the first year. However, the model escalates, and we've provided 3 examples to staff. One, at a very conservative 3% price increase per year, a 5% price increase from PG&E in a year, and a 10%. So As you saw in my presentation, over the last 40 years, the annual escalation rate of PG&E has been over 11%. We get a lot of clients that say, well, we want to be conservative, show me 3. The California Energy Commission allows us 5. And they have engineers that review all of our models and helioscope lens to make sure that we're not overstating the savings, or they won't loan us the money. But you're right, we do account for an annual utility escalation.
Yeah, my point is that it looks like we have the ability to save $16,000 a month on PG&E. But just looking at October, we spent $3,500. So I, would like to say something's wrong with that.
That's from the, that doesn't,
Okay.
that doesn't not the.
A lot more than that.
Okay,
So that
I just looked at the monthly.
Lots of juice.
It's good.
But let's do the math
Our costs are about 18,000 across the district.
per month.
Correct.
Okay.
And going,
And residential, last 12 years has gone up about 15% a year. That would be doubling every 5 years.
exactly. So if people want to see the most conservative case, I insist that I show you what will happen based upon what has actually happened over the last 40 years. And with all of the headwinds PG&E has with the wildfires and undergrounding and the increased demand from electric vehicles, where everybody is going to have an electric vehicle, even your fleet, here in the very near future. That demand, PG&E doesn't have that much supply on hand, right? We already have rolling brownouts and blackouts. So they're struggling to keep up. And they're just gonna keep adding costs and passing it over.
This might be a minor point, but what about smoke due to wildfire? Is that factored into the, the recent trend we've had other than this year as far as blockage of sunlight and hitting the panel?
That's a huge factor.
Yeah.
So in the resiliency case, that's why we would never recommend for you to get rid of your diesel backup engine generators. Because in those rare instances, when you do have wildfire smoke, that does cut down on the sun that hits the ground. So that would affect your production on the solar arrays and even make them dirty, so they need to be cleaned again.
Thank you.
Right, good question.
We do have another company that's going to present to us as well, so I want to make sure we give them some time as well.
Yeah, sure.
I appreciate you, John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So the other company is Site Logic. And
Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
yeah, turn it over to Jessica.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time, everybody. Today we have myself, Jessica Ritter with SiteLogic, as well as Taylor Boyle. She is our Director of Project Development, and Dr. Eddie Jordan, who is our Vice President of Project Development. So we are so happy to be here today presenting to you guys. We have a very similar type project to Veolia's, so I will skip through a lot of the slides. I know we are pressed for time here, and I want to be cognizant of your guys' time. So if we want to go ahead and just go to slide 4, please. We'll start talking a little bit about SiteLogic, who we are. We are one of the nation's largest energy services companies that is wholly American owned. We focus only on clean energy projects throughout the United States. Next slide, please. The majority of our projects are here in California. California is our largest client base by far. One of the reasons for that is because we pay the highest cost for energy anywhere in the nation, right here in California, which is a bummer for everybody who's paying rates, but makes it very good for the clean energy industry. Next slide, please. We do work all over North America, however, and like I mentioned, we focus solely on clean energy projects. That is our entire business focus. Our headquarters is in Minneapolis, but our California headquarters is right down the hill from you in Sacramento. Next slide, please. Okay. So the program overview is very similar to Veolia's presentation here. You have your current costs. You install a solar project or a clean energy project, and you have your debt savings, your cash savings, and then your remaining PG&E bill. That is how these programs work. They cash flow very well. Next slide, please. Okay, so traditional construction methods are very messy, very complicated. We try to take all of that responsibility off of your shoulders and onto ours. So we are the project designer, we are the project builders. So we are a design build firm, and we really try to make it very simple for the district to construct these types of projects. Next slide, please. All right. I'm sorry.
Oh, nothing. Sorry, just clear my throat.
Okay. So we are the single source of accountability on these projects. As the designer, as the builder, we try to focus everything on us, taking things off of your guys' shoulders to make it a very simple process. Next slide, please. All right, so let's get into the meat of this project. We are looking at one large solar array at your Sweetwater location. This will include solar as well as battery storage. So this final size is basically to be determined. So we're in a very preliminary stage, just like Veolia. We've gone through all of your utility data at all your sites, looked at your interval data, and we're trying to really design a project that's going to be the most budget friendly for the district. Now, there are multiple ways to fund these projects. There's grant opportunities, there's the ECA loan, the 1% loan, there's traditional tax exempt municipal leases. So we wanted to show you worst case scenario for funding a project of this size and scope. So if we could go to the next slide, please, we will get into the project metrics. All right, sorry for the really tiny numbers here, everybody. It's hard to fit a cash flow onto a PowerPoint presentation slide. So if you squint really hard, you can see these numbers. But essentially, this project is about 50% battery, 50% solar. So when we're looking at the numbers, you can see in the blue column is your net savings. So that's everything after your debt service. That's what you're left in your pocket year over year. So it's a very robust project here. So we have a total cost of 3.4 and an annual savings of $108,000. You do have your IRA tax credit. I know that's weird that they call it the tax credit. It's a direct cash payment in lieu of a tax credit is what it actually is. And John did a good job of explaining where that money comes from and how that's, so I won't go into that again for you. You don't need to hear the same information twice, but it is a very robust program. We have it funded through, right now, we have it funded in worst case scenario, which is a tax exempt municipal lease. This is a traditional debt service financing through a bank. So a lot of banks are subsidized to fund these types of energy projects, but still the interest rates are a little bit high. So we wanted to show you worst case scenario. Ideally, we will get a grant to pay for the bulk of this solar. Second to that would be the California Energy Commission ECA loan. Similar to the previous company that presented, we also have several projects in the waiting list for the ECA loan program. That's the number of the 1% loan is right now currently, according to our last conversation that we had with the CEC, which Taylor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe was last week or maybe earlier this week, there are several projects in the waiting line. And the soonest that the district could receive funding through the 1% program would be December of 2024. But because of the projects that are in the waiting line right now, it would likely be June of 2025. So that might not be the most feasible financing solution for the district. Although the 1% interest loan is very attractive, the time it takes to receive that funding might price you right out of a project. For the battery storage portion, we are proposing the DEBA program. And John did go through all of the details of the DEBA program, so I won't reiterate that again. But for now, this is our preliminary project. I also want to point out that in your net savings, this leaves room for additional pet projects. Things like HVAC that don't have a lot of savings associated with them. Things like pumps and motors. A little bit more expensive projects we can fit into here. So this is a very preliminary look at the district's energy costs and solutions. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide now, please. All right. So part of our performance validation is our dashboard. So I believe Veolia also mentioned a similar type of project, a little bit similar type of service. Where there's maybe a dashboard. I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen that yet. But for SiteLogic, we have an online interactive dashboard that shows you the usage trends and profiles of each one of your sites. Going back as far back as PG&E will give us data and history. These types of dashboards are very customizable and can be as simple or as complicated as you want them to be. So they're a very unique tool. This also comes with our performance guarantee. So all of our projects have a 90% performance guarantee. Also similar to what Veolia had mentioned, a lot of similarities here today, is that if our solar arrays that we install fall below what we are estimating that they are going to produce, we do have to write you a check for the difference. So it is security, especially when the district could be taking out financing for a project. You need to make sure that those savings are there to make your debt service payments. And if they're not, that a company is going to write you a check for that difference. So it's not affecting your general fund budget at all whatsoever. Next slide, please. All right. Why site logic? So there's a lot of reasons, also very similar to Veolia. Guaranteed fixed costs. So you will not get any change orders from us. Our contracts are lump sum fixed price contracts. We do bring the financial solution. So we have the grant writing partners to get you the money that you need to pay for these projects. We are local. So we're right here in Sacramento, right down the hill from you. And that is where the majority of our team comes and works out of. We are manufacturer agnostic. So we don't manufacture any products. So we're not going to push any type of product down your throat. It's whatever the district prefers, or really mostly what we see in the industry that's going to be the highest quality products for the lowest prices. Safety is also number one paramount for us. All of our subcontractors have very high safety records, as do our tradesmen. And sustainability, of course. These projects are very green, very sustainable sources of power. Next slide, please. Okay. So here is our roadmap to efficiency. We have had our concept meeting. We've had our site visits. We've done our preliminary analysis of the district. And here we are today presenting the measures. Now, one thing that I want to point out to the board is that we're not asking for any sort of commitment from you today. This is a very preliminary project and there's a lot of tweaks to be made. So what we were hoping to get today was some feedback from the board. What do you like? What do you not like? What would you like us to add into this program? You have our costs here. You have the savings. So you know that there's room to grow this project, room to add in some additional scope and some additional measures. But really, that's what we're hoping for today is some feedback from the board to see where your heads are at and see what we can do to help make this project fit all of your needs. And next slide, which is our last slide. And then we'll open up to any questions or comments from the board.
Wow. Have we, or can we consider, selling power? Like when we're at their peak, usages, or not usages, production, like along, say, Sweetwater, we put in multiple, charging stations for cars, for the use of, and they can pay us for that use. Is that an option we can have available? Like, put a couple of stations out here where the neighbors can come in and they pay us they get their cars charged.
Taylor and Eddie, do you guys want to take a stab at answering that question? I don't want to do all the talking, but
sure. I mean, it's something that could be evaluated and looked at. EV charging and EVs in general are becoming a lot more popular these days. And the infrastructure necessary to charge those cars, because to fast charge, you can take up to 200 kilowatts, which is quite a bit of usage. And since you're doing the infrastructure for this project already, it could be something to add or provide a benefit and then and actually make some revenue off of that charging. We've done it with other customers.
I would add it seems that at that Sweetwater location that you have many trails nearby, so it could be a potential to attract people with EVs onto the trails and have them charge while they take a hike.
Does your proposal include any usage reduction measures?
So that's a great question. We wanted to show you what the bulk of the project costs would be. That would definitely be from the solar and from the battery storage. We wanted to show you what the cash flow would look like worst case scenario. So knowing now that you have a lot of net savings from this project, you do have room to grow the scope. So if there are HVAC units that you want us to price out and add into this project, we can absolutely do that. LED lighting, absolutely. So we take a little bit of a different preliminary approach than Veolia does. But yes, to answer your question, there's a lot of room for additional scope.
And I guess back to what I was asking, you know, we are a water purveyor. Can we be, what is it? Is it gonna be a big expense to become a electricity purveyor? Where we're selling electricity to that trigger?
I think solar is a different, you can't really do a lot of solar.
That's why I'm asking
selling.
the experts.
Well,
What?
You can't, that's what, they're, the whole new, the NEM is, it's not the same as it used to be. There's other options that we have to become an energy provider, but I don't think solar is our right, avenue.
Well, we already are.
Like hydro.
No, but I'm just asking if we added these in, are we gonna run into, like you said, that you already have some customers that are doing that? Is there an extra permitting cost if we're doing something like that? Does that trigger us into some kind of different regulatory framework?
So I'll answer that question. Right now, the project that we're looking at is just covering the district's usage, right? So we're not looking at selling the power back to PG&E and making a profit or selling the power to the community members. This solar project is solely for the district, right? To benefit the district. Now, there are other programs that will be coming out soon. Well, we're hoping soon, but the CPUC still needs to make some decisions. And then that's a program called Community Solar, but that's a completely different discussion, probably for another day and another board meeting. But for today, this solar project is just to cover the district's utility expenditures. If that helps answer your question.
No.
Okay.
I have a question.
Let me help you. You're asking if we can become an energy seller.
I'm asking if we add on, because if we're gonna be doing a build out, this would be the time to be looking at something like that.
So what she's trying to say is solar is not an option for that. So solar is not how we do that. There's other options to provide energy to, are you asking to become like PG&E where we can,
No, what I'm asking is if we add multiple charging stations like located along that panel
Yes.
array, is there any, because one of, Eddie mentioned that he had already had one set up like that. Then is there anything we would need to do beyond that, installing them that would trigger regulatory, something regulatory that would get us in trouble or get us into a realm we're not used to?
I don't think so.
No, yeah, there's not. So City of Santa Cruz installed several with us, and we just did it with the City of Palmdale and other municipalities and districts such as yours. No regulatory issues. You're able to make revenue off of selling that electricity to charge cars. But we can look at that in more detail and provide more detailed information if there's further concerns.
Thank you.
Director Saunders.
Yeah, we already are energy providers and we do have some FERC.
So solar and hydro are different. So I just want to make sure that we're not going to be selling solar power. And it's more, it's a different, we're talking different apples and oranges. So
yes,
if we want to become an energy supplier,
That wasn't where I was going with.
I understand now. Yeah.
Okay.
We do have options to do that as well.
Okay.
I have a question. What is your estimated timeline for completion?
So it depends on when you sign the contract. But Eddie, what are we looking at for a completion, a rough timeline for a project of this size?
A project this size, upon contract completion, is within a year. We're pretty fast. I think the biggest obstacle would be the environmental impact report. Because it is where it's located, we may have to do a mitigated negative declaration. I'm not sure if we can get away with the categorical exemptions that we traditionally use. So that would be the longest lead item. But if we think we can get away with mitigated negative deck, it's fast within a year.
Correct me if I'm wrong, board, but did I hear 3 years on the previous presentation, or was that something else?
That was, it had to be completed within 3 years.
It had to be completed.
Yeah, that's utility requirement.
Oh, but not your timeline.
Right. The timeline is much faster.
And once we sign the contract, the reason I say this is because the largest cost in operating a vehicle is gasoline. The largest cost in producing solar panels is silver. And silver is now half the price it was 45 years ago. And it's the most undervalued commodity in the world. So once we sign the contract, if the price shoots up in the next year, we're covered on that.
From Veolia's perspective, you are. We procure and on a global level. So we bring in stock well before we need it. However, if you build the order, then some include a contract clause that would allow them to charge your dealer.
Because projections could go up tenfold, potentially.
Potentially, right?
Yeah.
Ones that are giving the presentation.
Okay. So that was my question to you. I was just.
Yeah, once a contract is signed, we'll hold our price. It's just when that contract is signed is the question. But yeah, we'll hold our price as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Get a comment from the public or a question from the public, excuse me.
Well, I'm curious as to why was it Veolia gives us a 22 million savings and this company gives us 8.5? Am I reading apples and oranges or what? It's on their.
Yeah. I can answer for Veolia.
Let's let Site Logic answer that first, please. Did you hear the question?
Yeah, I would say that our utility escalation that we assumed on this cash flow was a 6% utility escalation. We'd rather be conservative on our assumptions and you have better savings over the life. And based on the trends that we've seen in PG&E, 6% is a reasonable assumption.
Yeah, and we also presented, we like to present more of a worst case, if everything didn't work out type of scenario on our cash flows. It's better to under promise, over perform. We don't want to stick our neck out too much on guaranteeing certain grants or debt financing, especially since the waiting list is so long on the eco loan. We didn't want to put that into the cash flow because it's a year, at least a year, if not a year and a half out of even potentially getting that loan. And there's no guarantee the program's even going to be around for that long.
I would also add that we add in soft costs into our cash flows to account for any permits that you would need or any kind of additional fees that wouldn't necessarily be covered. So we want to show you the price as it is to the district and not just our contract value.
Thank you. Taylor brought up a really good point. We have a lot of contingency baked into this number. There's usually, almost always, unforeseen circumstances, right? So we want to account for those. The goal is that the final project cost comes down significantly because we don't have to use this contingency. But like Eddie mentioned, we want to overperform and we want to underperform and overdeliver. I said that backwards. I think you know what I mean, though. We always want to show you the worst case scenario option for funding, for cost, and that's kind of the differences in the two companies that you're looking at today.
I would also add for the we didn't include your district office into our solar assessment, and that was because essentially the system size and the payback at the escalation that we were assuming wouldn't necessarily be very fruitful for the district from our perspective. And I believe that NEM 2 grandfathering is only for 9 years, so we didn't want to over assume anything.
Bring up a very good point, Taylor. But I also want to reiterate to the board that we're not asking for any commitment today. We really wanted your feedback on your thoughts of the project. It sounds like one of the board members mentioned, and forgive me, I don't think I saw your name when you mentioned the additional scope for the project, but If the district would like us to add in some HVAC units for the district office or some other energy efficiency measures, we are so happy to look into that for you. Come back in a month or so with another presentation. And this is typically how these projects work is we come in with our preliminary project analysis, we get feedback, we go back, redesign, we come back again, and we might do that 2 or 3 times before the board is perfectly happy with the final result, right? We definitely don't want to bring any commitments or contracts or agreements to you until we have a project that you're 100% happy with. So that is one of the main differences, I think, to consider with the 2 companies that you're talking to today.
Mr. Dodd.
Where are your panels made, in the United States or China?
Eddie, do you want to answer that question?
We actually have a deal to procure a lot of our panels in the US now. They may not necessarily meet the Buy America requirement. In fact, I don't think any manufacturer does, but we procure almost all of them in the US. We are a US company. We take pride in our country.
But is that saying they're made here?
Yeah.
They're finally assembled here. There's still some things that are not made here. Like for example, aluminum framings coming out of South America, Brazil. The glass manufacturing as company or manufacturers are starting to ramp up on that. The main thing is the silicone is not refined here in the US. Most of the refineries are actually overseas, Southeast Asia, Taiwan, Japan. Now some facilities are opening here in the near future, but that's really the main component that is not currently made here in the US for anyone. Nobody makes their own silicone here in the US yet.
One more question, and is there a deadline for the board to make a decision to meet that timeline?
We don't have any deadlines right now. We're gonna bring this back.
I heard something about February. I'm not sure.
There is for the building here, the NEM 2.0, but we're gonna bring this back to the board at a later time. This was just an informative presentation.
There's no deadline from us.
What?
No deadline from them.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And, any more questions? Director Stoll.
I just want to raise the question, would it be appropriate to form a subcommittee to dig into this issue?
We can't do that. We can bring that back to the next board meeting.
Okay.
If that is something that the board wishes, we can bring that up at the end when we have other items to be brought in.
Yeah.
If that's something that you would like to do, then we can absolutely do that.
Okay.
Great.
I seem to remember not too long ago, we talked about solar and it was looked into and came back, it was before your time. And it came back to us that it wouldn't be feasible.
So
I don't know what changed.
So the things that have changed is there's a lot of money available in the system. So the federal government is putting money into the system. The state is putting money into the system. There's availability to have some of the costs, the initial upfront costs paid for. So it makes the return on investment sooner. And so that's why we're just continuing to explore. We're not making any decisions today.
Right.
This is just another presentation so that you can see that we're continuing to figure this out. We're continuing to look at it, and it's definitely something that's top of mind for us.
And then previously, they didn't give us an estimate of costs based on our district's needs. There was some other community and some other municipalities, so we didn't know.
So the company that we were working with previously, they were not a construction or they were a different sort of company. They were more of an assessment company. They went in and did solar assessments, and then they would contract with other companies to come in and build and design and do all the other work. These two companies are both going to do basically hands off. We sign a contract with them. They come in and they turn the keys over to us when they're done.
Yeah, because there was something I don't know how it worked, but at the end of this year, the return took a significant drop.
It's the NEM 2.0 that is going on.
Okay, so that was the one, because before it was like 20% higher than this year, and then this year it was supposed to drop another like 20%, where everything else would be like 4% or 5%, something.
Yeah, you're
really
close. You're very close in your numbers.
Ooh, scary.
Mr. Dowd?
I remember, many years ago, even before the Sweetwater treatment plant was, started, and they were just hatching it out, the plans and what to do and making a decision. Cherie over here multiple times asked questions about putting solar panels on the Sweetwater treatment plant.
While they're building it.
And it was like, it was just blown right over. They just moved, right over the top, didn't even listen to her.
No, why they didn't put it in initially.
Yeah,
Sure,
initially.
I would say the cost, there were a few things that costs were changed, and there was other things that probably could have been put in initially that would have cost us less.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, hindsight is 2020, and we look back and we would like to change a lot of things that we've done in the past, and we just have to continue to move forward.
They just didn't do it. It wasn't looked into.
I have one quick question. What about at Wolf, and is there any way to get something on the hill where those tanks are?
There's a lot of trees coverage right there, so it would be very difficult. We could probably do something, but we'd have to do some clearing.
And would the line drop from those to the plant cause a loss of?
I don't think so. You're talking about
Well, so much per foot that as the power is coming down, it's gonna be dropping significantly.
Yeah, I think that
I
would
see
be.
this guy shaking his head, so I was saying the right thing.
I think that the distance you're talking about is negligible, though. That's not a huge distance.
Okay.
And that could be compensated for.
So there are no more questions from the board or the public. I'd like to thank you, Site Logic, Taylor, Eddie, and Jessica for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But where's the applause for these guys?
Well,
Come on, gallery, let's get on the ball.
we already did thank you to him.
Put them on down.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Jessica, not Jessica, but Alexis, a lot of Jessicas around.
Water resources manager.
Yes, water resource management report.
We had 84 routine inspections, we had 2 escrows. We got 2 new systems in line, and I, for some reason, did not add them to my number up here at the top. So we're actually at 903 for individual wastewater disposal system lots. That will be updated next month. We did have some quarterly samples done. Then we had 2.7 inches of rainfall. Not much change for weather. We're back to equal. I mean, well, the temperature one. But I found a new winter precipitation during the 7 strongest El Niños. I don't know if they're relevant really, but I just thought that the chart was kind of interesting to look at. And then again, I updated our rainfall chart at the bottom. I'm not sure if we're gonna make it to the 2019 number, but we've got a few weeks left in the year. We'll see. And then we attached the water audit summary table here. The numbers are quite a bit different from previous years. The AWWA software did change the way they do their grading, so these numbers are gonna be kind of funky until the next couple of years, and we can really just use this last year as a base, but there are some good webinars if anybody's interested in kind of learning the changes from the V5 software to the V6, which is what we use now. And I can get you the links if you want them.
There's a pretty good takeaway in there, though. If you see the apparent losses, the meterings, the meters that we put in, you can see over the years how much revenue we lost. So you're looking at anywhere between $140,000 and $120,000 every year that we lost because the meters were inaccurate.
Is that the figure in the bottom left, the 22?
So if you look at the third column over where it says apparent, and it's a dollar figure. So that's the apparent losses in money.
Okay.
If you look at, I'm so sorry?
From which meters?
From the old meters to the new meters. The smart meters.
But
are the new meters. The old meters where you were losing $188,000 in revenue because it wasn't counting the water correctly.
So you're saying that the customer's water bills went up that amount of money
Well,
with these
they-
new meters in?
I mean, that's not the right way to say that, I think. The customer's water bills were being counted correctly now.
Okay, well, if they were under counting before, then they're being counted correctly now, then the
Correct.
customer's water bills would have went up significantly to
Theoretically,
the
yes.
tune of the $100 and some thousand a year.
Theoretically, yes.
Seems like we would have heard about that.
Well, I'm telling you about it right now.
Well, I mean, from customers.
Yeah, that's what he's doing.
$35 a year.
Is what?
$35.
Yeah, because the water use portion on your bill is a small,
For each customer, it's about 35, is what he's saying, it's about $35 a year.
and the water use portion is a smaller portion than everything else.
I'm just trying to show that that's more accurate, so you're. Why do you put in new meters? It's because of this, and actually, the state, if you have these apparent losses, will make you come in and put new meters in. These apparent losses are very high. I'm sorry, you're asking me a question, I apologize, you can ask. But the state will make you do this upgrade, so I'm just saying that we are doing a good thing, we were ahead of the curve and we're saving the district's revenue.
Mhm. And you can look at it like the customers have been saving for years and years and years without having the new meters in. They have been saving. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the biggest significant was the switch from last year of 52 to 11. So that shows the benefit of the AMIs. But we do see that we still need to continue to do work at the district to really get the reel down. So we have to work out our old infrastructure and the leaks and the pipes and.
Is that changing that number part of the funky changes you were talking about?
No, most of the change you're gonna see in this data validity score, but that does also have to do with, well, we started collecting data differently, so we did get the new meters, we now have Water Smart, we now have Tyler. So that changed it too. They went more from a percentage to a tier base scale thing, so I'm gonna have to play with this summary next year so that I can get you guys a little bit better of an idea, but
That's such a significant change.
yeah. Yeah, it's huge. We're tier 3, which is extremely average, which is good or bad, but the main takeaway from this is what we can use to perfect our loss. So not have any, which would be impossible, but get narrow it down a lot more.
Okay, thank you.
Moving right along if there's no more.
You didn't have, there's board questions I haven't been able to ask. Instead, we have to wait until the end of this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's quick. The legislative report number 2, what's the 30 to 45 days?
So when there's an emergency, remember, we'd say there was that we were operating under AB 361 for teleconferencing. And that would be every 30 days, we had to renew it. Now it would be 45 days.
And
If
then-
there's an emergency.
Okay, then Adam Brown's report, the water treatment plant operator recruitment, is that a new person or replacing someone?
New.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Are we still in it, Stumpy?
Not yet.
You're the one we always ask.
We're about 87%. We're about 87%.
Oh, it's getting closer.
We don't have to ask with Steve here.
Well, usually you give us a photo.
Photo, yeah.
I think you need better get on the ball there, please.
General manager's report.
I don't have much. I'll go and say, I attended general manager's workshop in early November, was honored to speak at the Mountain Counties Water Resource Association Water Forum on November 16th. Was able to moderate a panel, and I know he's not tooting his own horn, but I really want to make sure that everybody understands that Adam was on that panel, and Adam absolutely knocked it out of the park. He was great, amazing, and I really think getting him out into the community and doing those types of things more often is something we should do, because he is great at it.
This Adam?
Yeah.
I couldn't resist.
Well,
That's
I video-
one and only,
I videotaped it for your review if you like.
the one and only.
Yeah.
Continued to attend my JPIA Leadership Essentials courses. Couple good news updates. They were a little bit overshadowed by President McDonald's presentation. We did receive the JPIA certificates, special recognition awards. I was recently appointed to the CSDA Legislative Committee that will start January 1st. So that will be a 2-year term of me sitting on the Legislative Committee. There's been a bunch of BA public hearings I've been attending. And please note that there's a new board meeting time, so we will be updating the new board meeting. It'll be 1/4 at 2 o'clock. And I'm gonna make sure I get everybody in the room a Merry Christmas.
One board meeting that we're changing to 1 to 4.
1/4, debates, 1/4, first Thursday.
First Thursday, moving forward.
So we voted on that last
Right.
one. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that everybody put that as a note that we were gonna be moving from the second Tuesday to the first Thursday.
So when's the finance committee meeting?
I will have to get, it's the fourth Thursday, so whatever.
Fourth Thursday, still the fourth Thursday. Okay.
No, it's the fourth Thursday.
Oh,
It was the last Thursday,
Okay,
now it's
okay.
the fourth Thursday.
correct.
January 25th, it says,
Okay.
Fourth,
Okay.
the finance,
that sounds right.
Yeah.
Well, that's wrong on here for the irrigation committee meeting.
yes.
Second Tuesday,
But we
That's
can
supposed to
get
be
to that.
February 13th,
what do we have?
the next meeting.
It's February 13th at 2 p.m.
You were there.
Oh, we are meeting, we postponed that one, I forgot.
Oh,
Yeah, so it is February 13th.
All right.
You are correct. We are not having an irrigation meeting in January.
Any other board comment? Any public comment from the board, President, General Manager's report? Okay.
No.
All right, then, committee reports. We'll receive all these committee reports. We'll open these items up to public comment after all been given. Irrigation committee.
Well, Reyes, of course, is not here.
Mhm.
I did want to make sure we got the correction for the February 13th at 2 p.m. for our next for the next meeting. And what the committee pushed forward at the last meeting was the 2 documents that were in the consent calendar to go out, and then the irrigation committee, what is that called, postcard. That
Yeah, so that will come back. That
it will be coming back. Also, what they had requested from staff was to review the video. They're supposed to be doing some training videos and some educational flyers. So that's part of what is looking at to be at the February 13th meeting.
Correct.
And
Thank you. Finance committee, Nicholas, would you care to share?
Yeah, I would be happy to. At the finance committee meeting, we had an update of the investment policy report that was received at the last board meeting. Unfortunately, because of the way things fell, we did not have a quorum at the last finance committee meeting, so we had to move it to this last meeting. So all we received at the finance committee was an investment update.
Okay, thank you. Ad hoc committee for policy management.
So if it will please you, can we just move that to the presentation? Because we have a pretty in-depth presentation for the policy committee. I'll look to both board liaisons for that to make sure that unless you guys want to say something.
Do we have the update? Oh, we're not gonna do that.
The update.
it's supposed to be down here.
Yeah, I think we do, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a whole presentation. That's why
Yeah, we can wait.
we don't want to steal the thunder of
Yeah, we can-
our executive assistant.
Exactly.
Right.
So we'll wait till the presentations, nothing to report that.
Ad hoc committee. Grant writing.
Yeah, so you want to,
I missed it.
you missed it, okay.
I saw canceled, so I didn't attend. I got a 2 cancel.
Yeah, we did have the community members. We actually, it's funny, we attended, staff attended through Teams, they attended through Zoom, and then we had the merge in the middle. So it was, we did go over, some of the new grant opportunities. We went over, we kind of changed the grant form that Director Saunders had originally developed to now include what has been awarded, what has been submitted, what is kind of on our radar. So as Adam mentioned in his report, we are working on the USDA Rural Communities Grant right now. There are some energy grants from the USBR that we're assessing for hydro up at Stumpy. We're working with our grant writers to come up with additional state money to offset that bureau money so that we can have a fully funded project. So they can go anywhere between 1 million, 3 million, and $5 million projects. And if we get the 5 million, then it's a 50% match. So if we can take 5 million from a state project and we can match them up, then we can have a fully funded hydro project up there. And that would be a big win for the district, because then we could really start making some revenue as well.
And then I saw with the IRA that it's gonna be built into the solar project, so.
Yes, and so there's another solar that was on there. I can't remember. And we also are looking at the JPIA risk control grant. We're trying to see, we missed the deadline for this year, so we're trying to at least be ramped up and prepared for next year. That's all.
So does the grant writing committee have a list like what
We have
a policy committee have?
Yeah, so there's like a worksheet.
Probably put that
Yeah, I will put it up from now on. We'll
Okay.
put, that's a good thing. I was actually just thinking about that as I was talking. We probably should put the form, and it's a revolving form that just stays on there. And it's a pretty nice form. Elizabeth made it colorful and bright, so it's easy to read, easy to understand. And it shows kind of where we're at and what is, kind of cooking with those different grants and what projects we're looking at funding for grants.
Thank you. Next is Labor Negotiations Committee. I know we're gonna be discussing this in closed session. I'm not sure what, if any.
There's nothing.
There's all closed session.
Any board member questions for the committees? Any from the public? Okay. I'll now close the public comment section. And anything you want to add, Nicholas? I think you already did.
Or which one?
Just everything.
No, I think unless there's public comment.
No, they didn't. So you're final with you. Okay.
We're having a power issue here.
Okay. Finally, action items. A, consider adoption of policy 1000 guidelines and procedures for the development, adoption, and amendment of policy.
All right, who picked the cord?
Yes, it's okay. The cord is now released.
Are you got it or no?
Well, so here's the explanation. There's two supports. One goes to this and one goes to the owl. And then my charger is a seaport for here, seaport.
No, I think, I have an idea. Just start your presentation. I have an idea.
Who's to start?
Yeah.
I kind of like that. So we're on action item A.
Mhm.
Yeah, 9A.
So Elizabeth, prepared, approved.
Am I presenting this one?
Well, apparently.
Oh, okay, you're on. Okay, so policy 1000 kind of serves as a culmination of the policy committee's work. When they first met, they kind of put together a few objectives. And one of the things that the district was needing was standardization, a codification of the process from start to finish, and then also the product and what that would look like and how that would roll out once it's been done. So policy 1000 basically lays the foundation for how our policies are formed, start to finish, and then how they actually appear. So it gives us the formatting and everything like that, and gives the district one prescribed operation, if you will, to develop these policies. And it comes from, these two have been working really hard over several months. They've pushed together over 25 policies through. And so they took the knowledge through that process and it went into the development of this policy.
Thank you.
And I think we have the starts of the policy manual here, so. It's still green, it's still much under development, but it will be something that is available for all the board members. It will be available in the lobby, so if somebody wants to come in and look at what the policies are, and we are also, tell me what you had a cool name for the page online?
So we've created it sort of like a page that's called Document Library when you go to our webpage, and from there you can find the policies, the ordinances, the resolutions. So that will be kind of the information hub digitally.
So everything is gonna be as transparent as we can make it. It's all available. It's either available in print or digital. And then again, every new board member and current board members can get a copy of this made for them if they would like one.
Any questions, comments from the board? No, see none, public? I see none. Yes, make a motion to pass the resolution to accept this policy.
I make a motion that we adopt for the adoption of policy 1000 guidelines procedures for the development, adoption and amendment of policy.
We have a second by Director Stovall. All in favor? Aye. None opposed?
Nope, you gotta ask.
No. Yeah. Any opposed? None opposed? Motion passes unanimously. B, consider adoption policy 2200, disposal of surplus property or equipment.
So we just made a policy to make policies.
We made a policy to make policies. That's how we make policies, not a policy to make policies. It's a policy to tell us how to make policies.
You could be.
Okay, now is this policy gonna be in that book?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And then the next policy that you're gonna
This
discuss,
policy to make policies.
the surplus policy, which is going to be discussed next, will be how we surplus policy, how we surplus equipment out, and it'll also appear in the book once.
Maybe we need that one that shows us how to surplus policies.
That's a good, we'll work, I'll talk with Frank on that, because it's more of a Frank question than a me question. So the next one is, it's a discussion on how we surplus out equipment and what is the process. I would say of note, the thing I would like to really emphasize is we are not doing any sales in-house. We're not putting anything on Facebook Marketplace. We're not putting anything on Craigslist or any of those types of sites. We just can't legally, this is an untenable solution. So we are using a third-party site for all surplus activities. And I think that's the big takeaway, but I would, if there's any feedback on the policy, I'll open it up to the policy committee if they want to add any language as well.
Board member comment? Public comment?
Yeah, where's it posted on the website? Let's say exactly what.
Posted, what is, so I had originally put in the policy, we had it originally in an actual website. However, if anything changes with our website, it would potentially change the policy. So generally, it's in there. We have a site that says doing business, I believe, it's called something, doing business with us, and it's underneath there.
That's where you can look to see what's.
That is correct. It links you directly to the third-party site.
Okay.
It's where our bids go out, it's where our auction stuff goes out, it's all that stuff.
And this is only equipment, what about tools and all that other stuff? Well, how do you get rid of that?
But what is tools?
Like, you've got all kinds of tools that got rid of over the years.
Okay, it's like generators, welders, all that.
Smaller tools,
Yes,
I mean, all that stuff,
Yes.
does that still go through there?
Yes.
What about office furniture and all that stuff?
yes, everything would go through the same site.
All right.
We use Gov deals, but I don't, in case Gov deals ever went out of business for whatever reason, I don't wanna call them by name, so it's a third-party liquidator.
Okay, shouldn't it also be called equipment and,
Well, it's surplus property, it's not called equipment, it's called surplus property.
well. Okay, inside it does say.
Any more public comment?
So it's surplus property or equipment.
I'll just say, one of the changes that we made, right, Nick, was to clarify it's not real property.
Yeah, no real
That's the
estate.
idea about this. This is what you call personal property, anything that's not real property.
So.
So,
Means land.
yeah, no real estate.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, real property means real estate, land.
And we made a point to pull any of that
Out.
language out of this policy,
Correct.
so it would not
That's
Maybe
correct.
business
slip in.
property. Business, I mean, equipment.
Property or.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, you're saying it's not real, you can't say real property, but
Real
it's
estate.
business.
Real, that's
Real
the
and real
legal
estate.
term for what real estate is. It's
No, I
called
know
real.
that. But I'm saying, why don't you could call it business property that you're surplusing.
It's called surplus property or equipment. That is what the terminology you use.
Associated with this business.
Disposal of surplus property is the name of the thing, is the name of
Sale of
the
surplus
policy.
equipment shall be posted on the district's website, district property.
Yeah, that's the word.
Can we keep beating this horse a little more, maybe?
All right, any more public comment? I see none. Then I'll ask if there's a motion from the board.
I'll make a motion that we accept the policy number 2200, disposal of surplus property or equipment.
Is there a second?
Second.
That needs to be an amendment, adopt as opposed to accept. Adopt as opposed to accept.
Accept, adopt.
And who seconded?
I just.
Director Thornville seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Any opposed?
I might have posted just so you can finally say one opposed.
Be careful because it becomes a public record. You want to make sure it doesn't worthwhile.
Not just for fun. Motion passes.
Some of us has done that.
Some of us.
Motion
One
passes.
of us.
C, consider adoption of policy 2190, employee expense authorization, possible action to approve the resolution.
So this is a policy for employees only and how they get their expense reimbursements done. This does not include the board members. Okay, so of note, we took some language out that made it again, so the policy doesn't have to be updated every time, say the IRS changes their mileage form. We are referencing federal per diem rates because those adjust, having something that's kind of a living document is more difficult when it comes to a policy. But if we rely on other people who do this and look at this all the time and we say, hey, look to what they're doing, and that's how we do it, then that's what we're trying to emphasize in this policy. There is a form that we use here at the district that you can see that includes what is reimbursable, how it's reimbursable, and it is something that gets submitted to your supervisor and gets approved by myself. And all travel has to be authorized beforehand, just to clear that up. So people can't just go and say, oh, well, I went here and then get reimbursed.
Thank you. Board member comment or question, Mr. Stovall?
Yeah, I have a question. On the first page in item section 2190.1C, it says that reasonable amounts are subject to the maximum limit of the federal per diem rates.
Correct.
However, in the policy that we adopted on June 13th, regarding board compensation, it says that meals and incidentals based on the state per diem rate. Can you explain why the board policy per diem is different than?
It shouldn't be. I'm pretty sure that the board one should have said federal as well, because there is no state per diem rate. It's all done by the federal government.
It may have just meant the state per diem rate, which adopts the federal rate. I mean, there isn't a state per diem rate, but like the state uses the federal per diem rate. It all has the same source.
There's a website that we utilize and it's based on what city you're in. That's what sets the per diem rates. So there's not like You know, back in the day, it was like you had $75 to spend on, you know, breakfast, lunch and dinner. And it's different today based on what city you're visiting. And that's why it's a federal per diem rate. It's the GSA who sets the standards. Government's,
My opinion, they should be,
general services.
they should be the same. And I don't know if it means that we need to revise the board travel and allowance or what.
I think we can bring it back and adjust that and
Okay.
put it back on consent. That's fine.
Good catch.
That is a good catch. Yeah, I'll admit that's a good catch.
Any more board comment or question? Now open it up to the public.
Okay, there was an incident a couple of years ago where a clerk decided to go to Kinko's and print $500 worth of printing because she didn't want to come over and print with that, and then she charged. So would that cover this type of reimbursement, or would that be, I mean,
If she didn't have prior approval, it would not be reimbursed.
okay. Well, is there a policy somewhere that has that type of expense?
I mean,
I know it probably might not be in the travel one, but maybe in the fraud one. I don't know.
I am not 100% sure how to answer your question. So we always look back to something that happened in a time when things weren't always above board. And I think if we look forward and we say that things are not going to be done like that anymore, then we don't have those problems. And what I'm trying to say is, if you want to be reimbursed for an expense, it has to be approved first.
So maybe the MOU might be the place to put it, that you're not supposed to be doing stuff like that. I mean, how would an employee know not to do it?
I am not going to comment on that.
Okay, whatever.
Public comment period is now closed. Is there a motion for this item? From the board?
I make a motion, we adopt the employee expense reimbursement policy.
Do I get a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Director Stovall. All in favor? Aye. All those opposed? None opposed, motion passes. E, consider adopting policy 2105, asset protection and fraud prevention. Possible action to approve the resolutions. Nicholas?
Yeah, so this is a policy that is set up to help the district to ensure that no one is committing fraud. And unfortunately, if people would read the policy, they would see that this would cover what was just previously asked. Number one says claim for reimbursement of expenses that are not job related or authorized by the district policy. So that I think should cover anybody who's going out and doing work on their own or trying to get reimbursed for something that is not being able to be approved by their supervisor. There are other things in here. So this is, talking about misappropriating funds or embezzling funds, or generally it protects the district, and it's kind of an umbrella fraud protection. So I would open it up to the policy committee again. If there's anything that I'm missing, I think this is pretty self-explanatory. There's a lot in here. It's very legal. It's got, protections for the district, but I would love to have any discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
But it covers board responsibility in case of investigations that involve the general manager.
Any other director? Open it up to the public. Three.
I think it should say employee, because does it include customers, subcontractors, contractors? Is that a different category?
You'll have to be more specific as to what you're referring to us adding.
The title policy should be something in here that it just pertains to employees.
But it doesn't, this is anybody who's working with us as well. So.
Right.
Yeah, please.
I would just say, if you have any vendor consultant, let's say Veolia decides to run off with a bunch of the goods that they create, you'd have you have a whole different process for that. That's civil enforcement, criminal enforcement. It's not, this is designed to deal with personnel investigations that happen internally, but you have civil and criminal enforcement against third parties, period. Not that the only would do that, but for example.
Well, we also have unleash the homeboys.
And what about temporary employees? They're not actually employed by the district.
Temporary employees are employees.
Legally, they are. The IRS says that they're employed by us.
Any further public comment? And I'll close public comment section and open it up the board for motion.
Motion, we adopt policy 2105, asset protection on workplace fraud prevention.
Second by Director Stovall.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None.
A little early there.
Motion passes.
You said you wanted to hurry things.
I do.
along. I'm trying.
That's the basketball game starts in 10 minutes. I don't think I'm gonna make it.
Yeah.
And it's Taco Tuesday. Director Cornbrow.
I've been reminded.
Now we adjourn at.
Can I make one quick
We do
change?
have to take public comment on.
Can I make one quick change while the public's here to discuss a date change for February, at least moving the time to 2:30 for the February board meeting start? It's
We would have to agendize that.
All right, so can we put that on the January agenda?
You can actually discuss that after closed session.
Well, I was gonna say to move the board meeting date up while the public is here.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Yes,
Oh, if you wanna, it's fine. If you wanna do that, that's fine. That'd be for February, but is that agendized? Do we have to?
that would be just we get that would just be a special meeting for that board meeting, because it'll be at a different time, which is a big deal.
It would be the same date, just.
But even the half an hour just makes it a special meeting,
Okay.
but it's not, it's easily done.
2:30.
We'll make an announcement at the next meeting, but yeah, likely. So it's been discussed.
Yeah.
President McDowell, before we go to closed session, I just want to make sure we open it up for public comment.
Sure, okay. No public comment, then.
Thank you, Site Logic. I see you're still on. Thank you, Carolyn. We're gonna go mute and off camera for a little while.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's now
Oh, I know this
6:57 PM, 18:57 hours, and we are ending this closed session with no report out.
So just a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye, none opposed. Motion passes to adjourn.